You can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going round that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth for this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a £5 in a pot and you can go in and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed, and very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the park's hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. And what about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park, narrated by Angela Rayner. Says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide ride surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed whack the rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine the Scouts to say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 6. The sun is up. It's a beautiful looking day, ladies and gentlemen, and we are here. It's Thursday the 17th of July, and I'm afraid to say that we are still suffering the slings and arrows of what can only be described as outrageous misfortune, because it looks as though the Afghanistan story has taken a bit of a turn for the worse, believe it or not. Only yesterday we were sitting here trying to explain to you how it was possible that some Royal Marine was able to send an email with 18,000 names on to a load of people who shouldn't have seen it, thereby putting all of those same 18,000 people apparently in danger from being killed by the Taliban. We then decided to rescue them all, bring them all to Britain, put them all up in houses which they were given for free, bring their wives with them, bring their kids with them, bring their dogs, their cats, their donkeys, whatever it was else they wanted to bring with them, their Lego kit, and set them all up in Life of Riley in Britain. Now apparently it seems that they're not happy enough with that, and now they're going to sue us. I mean, you literally couldn't make it up. So they found a load of lawyers who are now going to take another billion. Having spent $7 billion on them already, they're going to want another billion in compensation because of all the trauma that we apparently put them through by naming them to the Taliban. This story just gets worse and worse, ladies and gentlemen. Cabinet bid to halt Afghan airlift. Ministers objected on security grounds, but were overruled with emotional blackmail. This, of course, is the story of the Tory government, Rishi Sunak and his cohorts, Ben Wallace and a whole bunch of other people, Suella Braverman and, of course, Grant Shapps. They all knew what was going on. Apparently the Treasury and the Foreign Office tried to stop it from happening, believe it or not, but the government overruled them and said, no, we've got to bring these people in to Britain. Front page of The Sun, Afghans £1 billion blunder compo. Defence chiefs have braced for a £1 billion compensation bill over a data breach which revealed that Afghans who supported UK forces, around 100,000, were put at risk of Taliban death squads when their names of loved ones were revealed in 2022. 100,000 people. I mean, we went there to save them. We've only got, 12,000 troops. How do we have 100,000 people helping them? In which case, why didn't we win? Which apparently we didn't do. We went there and we lost. And now we've got a £1 billion bill to pay them compensation for bringing them here to save them. Am I the only one that thinks we're living in some kind of parallel universe? Thanks for saving us, it says on the front page of the Mail. Now we'll sue you. Right then, so I don't know where to start with this really, but Chloe Dobbs is here. Very good morning to you, Chloe.
Morning.
We'll get to that one. Plus we got Prince Harry tries to imitate his mother. Finally, he's finally sort of hit pay dirt. He's gone to Angola and put a sort of bulletproof vest on, and he's walking through a minefield, just like his mum did. Isn't that nice? How old is this guy? 10? 0344 499 1000. This, of course, is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Are we like the sort of idiots of the world? Have we got a big flag that everybody puts up that's somewhere that can be seen from not only Europe but also the entire rest of Eastern Asia? Come to Britain because not only will you get a great life, which is paid for by all the people that have been born there, and then if you don't like it, you can sue them and get an even better life.
Yeah, it's like we just have a big sign up that says "Come to Britain."
Sue me.
Free everything, free money, free houses, you name it, we'll give it to you.
Free Netflix.
The whole world is just taking us for fools. Yeah, I mean, free Netflix. I mean, they've spent loads of money in asylum hotels on all these subscriptions and whatnot. I can't remember the exact figure, but the bill is shocking. I mean, this is crazy that these people are going to be able to get potentially 250 grand compensation each if their name was leaked. Yeah. And it's like, how much do you want from us? Right. Shouldn't you be grateful that you've been rescued by us, given a free house?
And resettled. And we had a guy ring up yesterday, or day before actually, from Sussex, who said, we just bought a house last year for £500,000, 4-bedroom house on a sort of new build lot, you know, and of course there's plenty of social housing that's built into that. And he said, we discovered that down at the end of the sort of estate, there's a group of about 4 or 5 houses, a couple of flats, and they've all been occupied by Afghan families who have been, he said, it leaves a pretty poor taste in the mouth because all of us have paid proper money, and we're paying a mortgage every week, every month, and these people are getting it for free.
Yeah, I mean,
amazing.
It's an absolute joke, and I understand that there were promises made to people who helped fight alongside British troops that we would help them, we would bring them out of there, and we would house them.
But there weren't 18,000 of them.
Well, I mean, what Johnny Mercer was saying is that most of the people actually on this list who we are bringing over to Britain, they actually didn't fight alongside us. I don't know who exactly these people are and what role they play, but it sounds like there are a lot of people there who weren't really people who were promised a house in the first place. They've just been on this list, and we've decided that's a risk. Right. They could be hurt by the Taliban. Yeah. We're going to take them all out of there and completely pamper them. And then the lefty lawyers are all rubbing their hands, getting all excited the past couple of days because they can't wait to get a big paycheck. Yeah, right. So they're all ready to
no win, no fee
to cash in. Yeah, exactly. You know, and you know, it was scary enough hearing that the bill is going to on around 7 billion quid. We've heard different figures, but 7 billion is the one we keep hearing. Right. And then to hear it's going to be another £1 billion on top of that. And when we were told by this government, sorry, we can't give pensioners the winter fuel allowance because we need to save £1.5 billion quid, figures like that, when put into context, it does seem like quite a slap.
Exactly right. And also the inheritance tax that they're putting on farmers, the one U-turn they haven't yet made.
I think that was only estimated to save 500 million quid a year at most.
Yeah, exactly right. So a lot of the stuff that they've done, I mean, Rachel Reeves will talk about in a minute because she's been blamed for the inflation rise that went up yesterday to 3.6%, highest since 2024, January, I think. All of these little sort of nip and tuck deals that they've tried to do to nick $1 billion here, $1 billion there, a couple of billion over here, $5 billion on the welfare budget, all of it is dwarfed by this Afghanistan scandal. 7 billion quid. And I know that it's a Tory problem, and we said this yesterday, and the Tories, I think, will be finished off by this because they've been so underhand and they've been so ridiculously kind of, you know, duplicitous about the whole thing, trying to keep it from the public, trying to get super injunctions. Grant Shapps, who nobody knows where he is, he hasn't said a word, and either Rishi Sunak, you know, trying to withhold information from the taxpayer, the British public, the voting public, the people who put them into power, and trying to just go, oh yeah, you're not important enough to know about this, we're just going to do it and keep it a secret. Oh, it's disgusting, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is disgusting, and I think that the idea that this 2-year-long or nearly 2-year-long super injunction is merely to keep those individuals safe from the Taliban is for the birds.
It's nonsense,
I can understand them when they first found out about this leak and they need to figure out what's going on, putting in a super injunction. Initially, it was meant to be 4 months initially, right?
Putting just an ordinary injunction was good enough, which is what Ben Wallace did, and it was only when he resigned, and I'm sure now that we know that he resigned for God knows what reason, and there were lots of stories around at the time, I'm sure this is connected to his resignation because it all happened under his watch. You
Yeah,
know?
it-
And then
it may
Grant
have
Shapps
something
took
to do
over
with
and
it.
decided, oh, an ordinary injunction is not enough. We need to put a super injunction on it, so nobody can ever find out that we ever did this.
Yeah, it was very clearly the government running
Yeah.
away from accountability,
Yeah.
and you know,
I mean, Grant
the
Shapps-
journalists and other, you know, it's not just journalists that didn't know about it. MPs didn't
Yeah,
know about it.
right.
It was just a very, very tiny few
Well,
number of
apparently
people that
some
knew about it.
people
It's so
in the
crucial
cabinet-
in a democracy
Yeah.
to be able to criticise
Yeah,
things,
totally.
especially when it involves 7 billion quid of taxpayer money, people being moved into your communities. You know, as you said, that street you mentioned there.
Yeah.
How, you know, how much of a slap in the face is that when you, as you've paid your way, you're struggling to pay the bills each month, and you see that there are some people that have moved in down the end of the street, they've got a nice house, a nice flat, and they are not paying a single penny for it. And also, apparently, this £7 billion figure, realistically, the actual cost of it is going to be more than that, because that doesn't take into account, for example, the cost that these people are going to put on us when it comes to, say, use of the NHS and public services, maybe their kids going to school and whatnot. I think this is just getting them here, getting them in housing.
But it's not clear exactly how long the payment goes on for, you know, because if you bring, say, and we saw pictures in the papers yesterday, quite a lot of these Afghan families are quite big families, got like 4, 5, 6 kids, you know, because that's their kind of, you know, culture, that's what they do. So you're talking about giving them a 4-bedroom house, which is worth £500,000, say, for example, and then they stay in that house and supposedly they're encouraged to get a job. But if they don't get a job, they obviously will have to have help to pay for the house, because that's what they're going to be doing for the rest of their lives. So presumably we're supporting them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
and when their children perhaps grow up, and when the parents perhaps pass on, I don't know whether the house gets passed on to the kids. I just don't know. I mean, it's not clear.
Well, exactly. So 7 billion is absolutely not going to be the end of it. How many of these people are going to end up on benefits?
Yeah.
I mean, we just had another story out yesterday about, I think, over 1 million foreign nationals are on universal credit, racking up an absolutely huge,
and 100,000
huge
increase just since Labour have been in, right, in foreign nationals claiming universal credit, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And we know that the welfare bill is absolutely ballooning. The last thing we need is more people coming to this country who not just bring themselves, but bring the wife, the kids. The kids need to go to school. The wife probably doesn't work, and you've got all of these people to support, and then you've got you've got all these Brits who, a lot of them, they're getting up every single morning, setting their alarm at 5 a.m, not coming back till late at night, working a difficult job, and they're struggling to pay the bills. Meanwhile, there's someone in a house down the road. They're just sitting about having the time of their life.
In this guy's case, in the same house. I've got another listener in Scotland who sent me something yesterday, which I'll read out in a minute. Let's have a look at a couple of clips from yesterday, because one of the things that I thought was really appalling yesterday was the fact that Prime Minister's questions, which you would have thought should have been a really good opportunity for a conversation, at least, about who knew what when, you know, let's see if Kemi Badenoch can ask the right question. She didn't go anywhere near it. She didn't bother. She went in on the economy and just left it at Keir Starmer's statement, which he issued at the start of PMQs. Here's what he said.
There's always been support across this House for the United Kingdom fulfilling our obligations to Afghans who served alongside British forces. We warned in opposition about Conservative management of this policy, and yesterday the Defence Secretary set out the full extent of the failings that we inherited. A major data breach, a super injunction, a secret route that has already cost hundreds of millions of pounds. Ministers who served under the party opposite have serious questions to answer about how this was ever allowed to happen. The chair of the Defence Committee has indicated that he intends to hold further inquiries. I welcome that and hope that those who were in office at the time will welcome that scrutiny.
That's it. So, yet another inquiry, yet another Keir Starmer kind of side shuffle.
Yeah, and that will cost
another billion.
Another billion.
Let's just round everything up to $1 billion, right? Here's John Healey from the Department of Defence. He's the Secretary of State for Defence, of course. He was the guy that announced it on Monday afternoon. Check this out.
As far as the individual goes, I'm not going to launch a witch hunt or point the finger at him.
It's
Those were
if people have such a make up such a monumental error in a position of responsibility that puts people's lives at risk, it's not a witch hunt to seek them out and reprimand them, is it?
I'm sorry, those were decisions that would have been taken at the time. This goes much bigger than the mistaken actions of a single individual.
Well, yeah, it does go much bigger because now it's going to cost us £8 billion.
Yeah,
you know,
thanks, mate, for that one email you sent.
Yeah, for literally pressing send, it's £8 billion. And we're not going to conduct a witch hunt against him because, you know, it wasn't his fault. How's it not his fault?
Yeah, sure, he's a nice guy, just an honest mistake.
Right? Yeah, it's just, you know,
Even
ridiculous.
if it was an honest mistake, which, you know, I'm sure it would.
Well, it could be.
You still need to be held accountable to incompetence, even if it isn't done with vengeance.
Well, clearly it was not done with vengeance, but nevertheless, people have said to me in the kind of data business, you shouldn't have had anything like that kind of sensitive document anywhere near a file that could just be sent somewhere by mistake. You know, there should be safeguards around a file like that so that you can't suddenly just go, I thought I was just booking a dentist appointment, but I seem to have, put a list of 18,000 Afghans in danger, sent it to all sorts of people that shouldn't have it. And you go, well, you shouldn't be able to do that, should you?
It's just, I just feel like this country, it's just such a clown show in so many areas on so many levels. And when you get another story of an idiot doing something like this that costs us 7-8 billion quid, you just think, just another day in Britain.
I thought I was sending my online shopping list, to my wife, but instead, I've bankrupted the country. I mean, unbelievable. Have a listen to this, all right? This is something I got. She wants to remain anonymous, but somebody I do know. Where I live is one of the most desirable parts of Ayrshire in Scotland. We have 8 ex-MOD 4-bedroom detached houses with built-in garages and large gardens, 2 streets from a place called Greenan Beach in a quiet cul-de-sac. These houses were originally used as officers' quarters when HMS Gannet Sea King Squadron Air, Sea and Rescue was stationed at Prestwick and closed a few years ago. They never sold the houses. Now we have 8 Muslim families with 4 to 6 kids apiece, and no one seems to want to talk about it. We don't know where they came from. There's been nothing in the local paper, and everyone's too worried about being classed as racist if they talk about it. The houses are now totally unkempt, blankets on the windows as curtains, gardens unattended, and the kids will go to the local school next door, which is okay. As for integration, we walk by the women who put their heads down, we say hello but are ignored, but I'll keep trying. The men have electric bikes and cycle around the area, but they scowl at us when they walk or cycle by. No effort made to integrate. Women are fully covered up head to toe, which is why they stand out. It's very unusual here. Is it racist to ask questions? I really fear for this country, but I'm glad there are people like you and the team at Talk doing what you can. This is happening in parts of Britain all over the place. So that's in Scotland, right? So it's happening in Sussex. We know it's happening in Cornwall. We know it's happening in almost every county of Britain, that these people are being sort of parachuted into houses and they're not in any way assimilating.
No,
and that's the problem.
And I think if you are so lucky to be given a chance to come and live in this great country, you should be damn grateful, and you should make it your utmost priority to integrate, to get to know your neighbours, to try and learn the language.
And to want to be British. I mean, I always say this about when I first went to live in New York when I was 23. I went and lived in New York to sort of seek my fortune, literally. It was that corny, and it was fantastic. And everybody that I met who had come to America from a different country was American. They wanted to be American. If you ran into a Russian taxi driver or somebody from Haiti or, wherever they were from, they were like, I'm so glad that I'm in America. I want to be an American. And they would sing the Star Spangled Banner and go, I came from somewhere else, but now I'm an American.
Yeah, it's
but
that American dream that people want to
But these people are coming to Britain and they don't want to be British.
Yeah, and it's a shame because people who came from abroad many years ago, often, people think, it's just those, racist white Brits that talk about immigration levels being too high and whatnot. Right. But no, there are so many people who came here, who worked hard, who paid their taxes, who made a huge effort to integrate into society, and we're so grateful to have a place here, who say, I did my bit, I worked hard, I integrated, but now I see there are way too many people coming, it's completely unsustainable, and they completely isolate themselves. It used to be the case that if you came to this country, you had no choice but to integrate because you were, you might be the only person on the street from your country. Whereas now you can be parachuted in and you can just move to a community where everyone speaks your language, everyone's the same faith as you, and you just live in this
a bubble,
an utter bubble.
Yeah, right. And effectively, we're being told that we could have, at the end of all of this nonsense, 150,000 people from Afghanistan, who clearly did not all help us during the war, who are then be living in this country. It's an entire city full of people from Afghanistan. Might as well call it Kabul, little Kabul or something. It's mad. Let's get a voice note from Matt.
Mike, Matt in Hove here. Has this country gone completely bonkers? So we've got tens of thousands of Afghans coming over, being plonked in small towns and cities in private rental accommodation. Most of them can't speak English. They're on benefits. We've got people coming over on small boats and being shipped to hotels. Again, they haven't claimed asylum yet. They're not going to work. They're just on benefits. How is this country going to possibly recover from this? I genuinely can't see it. It's gone too far.
It certainly has gone too far. Matt's absolutely right. This one from Davey. He says, I'm ex-military and I served 22 years, including a 7-month tour in Helmand in 2008. We had great interpreters, but we never told them where we were going as we didn't trust them. Great. So let's bring them all to Hemel Hempstead then, shall we? It's a bit tricky navigating the roundabouts, a bit funny though. But don't worry, we'll probably give you a Motability car, nice big house. Unbelievable.
So you've got a bit of anxiety and then you'll get a bunch more benefits.
And also, here's a nice human rights lawyer who can help you out with getting some compensation because we didn't bring you soon enough.
It's just unbelievable.
It is incredible.
And I think that, we know that this country is a mess, but this just feel like the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Like the people of this country are so angry about how the people in power have overseen this mass immigration, both legal and illegal, and then to find out that behind closed doors, on top of the huge numbers of people coming across on the boats, that this was going on as well, and they didn't even tell us about it. They didn't even have the guts to tell us.
And they thought the best thing to do is just to keep it secret.
Exactly, which just shows how much they disrespect the people of this country and they disrespect the voters. And Rishi Sunak was boasting about getting the small boats numbers down from 45,000 to 30,000 a year. All meanwhile, he knew actually the number of people coming in isn't really going down because we've got all of these Afghans coming in, but he wasn't telling us.
And the other thing they did was they sneakily put it into the net migration figures without telling anybody either. Because I remember thinking at the time, I think it was 2 years ago, 76,000 was the number of people coming in who were seeking asylum. This was legal routes, right? But nobody explained how suddenly that was there. And obviously it was including the Afghan people who were coming in on this, resettlement scheme. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. I've written a piece for The Sun this morning, which we'll talk about a little bit later on as well, because it's based on what people were saying to me yesterday, which is, it's time for an election. Get rid of the Tories, get rid of the Labour Party, let's have a proper election, let the people decide who they actually want to run this country, because it's being run so badly and has been run so badly for the best part of the last 10 years, So let's have another election and kick them all out. This, of course, is Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. Chloe Dobbs is here. It's 22 minutes past 6. Back after this.
Is reform something you've thought about, JG?
Look, I've been a member of the Conservative Party generally for 18 years, my entire adult life, tragic as that may sound. I've never felt so despondent and disheartened with the Conservative Party, but having been a member for that long, seen the good, the bad and the ugly, I really want to believe that at some stage we're going to fully acknowledge our mistakes, completely understand and empathise why some of my former colleagues, like Jake Berry, have chosen to go to Reform UK. And of course, at times, I've looked at things and thought it could be quite tempting.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 6:25. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Chris says, Mike, surely people should be sacked for the Afghan blunder. Billions lost and thousands allowed to come here, and lawyers now out to get them compensation from us taxpayers. Sack all who were involved. I think that's right. Chloe Dobbs is here with us. Chloe, you were mentioning just in the break there, Robert Jenrick. He was very, very quiet for a couple of days, and the suspicion was that he would have known about this particular injunction. And, of course, it turns out that he did. He put out a tweet sort of about, what, 7 o'clock last night? A very long-winded sort of, explanation of how he found out about it and how he and Suella Braverman were trying really, really hard to stop it from happening but couldn't, and how terrible it all is. But I wonder how damaging that is to his kind of, quest to become whatever it is he's trying to become, either the leader of the Tory party or some kind of, sap to reform. I don't know.
I mean, I doubt the Reform Party will be taking him, given that they have spent the past couple of days absolutely going for him, making memes about him on this. Yeah. And they've been, the Reform Twitter account, they've been going back and retweeting old tweets and articles of his from 2022, 2021.
Right. There's always a tweet, as they say, isn't there?
There is always a tweet. So anyway, Robert Jenrick has put out this big, long tweet explaining what was going on. He said he was bound by the official, by the Secrets Act or whatever it's called.
The Official Secrets Act,
yeah. That one.
And he said, it's nothing to do with the super injunction. I couldn't speak because it was against the Official Secrets Act.
And he's saying that him and Suella Braverman were desperately pushing back against this, but that there was just simply nothing that they could do. We're hearing that James Cleverly was pushing back against this as well.
Yeah.
And we will probably never know exactly who in government was the main driver of this, who was most responsible for it, because it's very difficult to... Everyone's going to say, oh, I had nothing to do with it, this isn't me to try and save their reputation.
We had Mel Stride on yesterday who said he didn't know about it, and several people since have kind of questioned that as to whether, if you're in the cabinet at a reasonably high level, how is that not a discussion that would be had? You could all be sworn to secrecy, but I mean, surely cabinet level should be a conversation about something as big as that, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, it should be a conversation, but what we are hearing is that they weren't even allowing, small committees of people to actually have any discussion about this. This was just a very few individuals making the decisions. So I won't ever know for sure how much of a role Robert Jenrick played in this, and it's one thing saying I pushed back against this, but how hard did you push back against this? Just like how, we hear Tories coming out all the time now and saying, as you were just saying in the break, I didn't believe in lockdowns, I didn't believe in this, I cared about the grooming gangs. It's like, OK, maybe you would have said one thing about it, but did you actually really push back against it and push hard?
Right.
I don't know.
There's a lot of rewriting of history. According to the Telegraph this morning...
we've had Suella Braverman's husband who had defected to Reform. Apparently he's resigned his membership of Reform now.
Yeah, that's pretty shabby, isn't it?
After Reform have gone after his wife and Robert Jenrick.
I mean, that is pretty shabby. I mean, if you're going to leave someplace because you don't believe in its politics anymore and you're going to join a political party and then you leave in a hissy fit because they've said something horrible that you don't like about your wife. I mean, really? Multiple sources have told the Telegraph that among those who raised objections to the plot were Sir James Cleverly, who was Foreign Secretary and then Home Secretary during the time the row was raging, Suella Braverman, who preceded Sir James in the Home Office, Michael Gove, the Community Secretary, and Laura Trott, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. So there's quite a big array of people. And James Heapy, former army officer,
they seem to be putting the blame on him,
who was Armed Forces Minister at the time, was put in charge of the scheme and was accused of using emotional blackmail to force it through. I mean, emotional blackmail being presumably, look, we have to rescue these guys. I remember, I said this yesterday, I remember hearing lots of conversations going on around the resettlement scheme of people who had been interpreters and people who had helped the British forces. But it was literally hundreds of people rather than, you know, tens of thousands, you know, because there was only 12,000 UK troops that went out there in the first place. You know, so it's not as if they needed the help of 25,000 Afghans. That wasn't happening. You know?
No, these are not all, you know, don't be fooled into thinking that these are all people who fought alongside us.
They certainly aren't. Well, John Healey even said
that were keeping our British soldiers safe and working alongside them. No, it's not the case.
No, John Healey said it.
People who have been given a free pass to come to Britain. And sure, there may have been issues with security with that list getting out, but the solution to that security risk should not have been to charge a taxpayer £7 billion. I mean, we've got various different numbers coming out at the moment as to exactly how many people have come and how many are going to come.
I think the real figure that we know of at the moment is 18,500 that have come so far, and there's a lot more still to come.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the figures I heard yesterday is that if you do the maths, I think with the £7 billion and 24,000, you end up with 350 grand per person.
That's
a lot of money.
It is a lot of money,
and
but when you
said,
consider
that's just the start.
But if you consider but also if you consider that's their
lifetime,
it's a lifetime amount of money, because you know they're going to live for 20, 30, 40 years. You know, so actually when you add it up like that, it's not that much. A couple of voice notes here. First up from Liam.
Morning, Mike. Liam from Kent. Up at 2:30 again this morning, and after all this drama this morning, I really don't know why I bothered. I mean, I looked up and down my road yesterday, and it's only now all this has come out that I've realised even my area in Kent, there's Afghans and foreigners everywhere, and I'm not a racist, but none of them work. And I left my house at 3 o'clock this morning. They're still all in their garden having a tea party, and it makes you really consider why we bother getting up in the morning. Have a great show, Mike.
Absolutely incredible. And one from Andy after that.
Hello, Mike. Hello, Chloe. Andy in Portsmouth. I'm so depressed as well. You know, when you think things can't get any worse, you know, it does. I goes out to work 7 days a week, all right? I mean, all right, I only do sort of 6-7 hour sort of shifts, but I do 7 a week because, you know, I'm self-employed and that's what I've always done. It works for me. I get no help whatsoever. And it really, really pees me off to find out and learn that all these people that are coming over here who shouldn't be here get given benefits straight away. I mean, how's that work? It really is depressing and it really does tick me off. So, yeah, I had to get that off my chest anyway. Cheers, guys.
Andy, thanks very much indeed. So many people feel exactly like Liam and Andy there, you know, because they've got the life of Riley, these people. They don't have to, you know, they're supposedly going to be encouraged to work at some point, but the kids are getting free schooling, they're getting free NHS care, and they get jumped up to the front of the queue for that as well, by the way. They've got free dental care, where they get found dentists all the time. They presumably get given benefits because otherwise they haven't got any money, they've got no source of income. But if they choose not to work, they will have to be supported for the rest of their lives. And say, for example, a couple come in who are in their 40s and they've got 5 kids. There were pictures in the Mail the other day of some people arriving at Stansted Airport last year. You know, that's a commitment of probably 40 years, maybe 45 years, to support them and their kids, and at some point presumably the kids move out of the house or the kids inherit the house. I mean, I don't know how it works.
Yeah, and it is
like a lifetime
it is a statement of fact that Muslim families have a heck of a lot more kids than the rest of us. I can't remember the exact figure on the average number of children a Muslim family has, but it is a lot more. So it's
closer to 5 than it is to 2, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is always the people who are least capable of taking care of their kids that have the most of them, and the rest of us have to pick up the bill for it. And it is one thing seeing that a British family living down the road from you are not working. They're getting almost as much or as much money as you. That's one thing. But then seeing that someone who has rocked up here from another country is not working and is getting everything paid for by the state, that is completely taking the mick. And the thing is, you know, Liam, who called up there, he had to clarify, I'm not racist, as we all have to when we talk about this, because it should be normal to say, if you turn up here from another country, you do not get a free pass.
No.
You should not be ahead of the queue of Brits. And in fact, Brits should have a higher priority than you. But if you mention something like that, it's just so toxic.
Well,
Everyone says, oh, you're racist. How dare you say that an Afghan shouldn't get as many benefits as a Brit?
Right.
How dare you mention the fact that they're, you know, they've created a mess of their front garden and there's rubbish everywhere.
It's a cultural difference.
Have you seen what their country looks like? Okay, you know, I went to Syria. There's rubbish everywhere.
Yeah.
The whole place looks like a tip.
Right.
I'll happily say it looked like it looked like an absolute tip.
Right. Well, this is what they used to say about Afghanistan. You know, when they tried to bomb it back to the Stone Age.
Yeah.
How would you tell?
Exactly, and it's not racist to just make the basic prediction that if you bring people to our country, a clean country, from a country that's messy because they, you know, they haven't got bin collectors coming out every day. They've got different standards. That you're going to have problems. But if you bring it up, everyone shouts at you.
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely ridiculous. But
I think if you come to a country, you should be forced to have private healthcare.
Yeah.
Pay your way. You're not allowed to, you know, make the NHS waiting list longer. You have
exactly
to
right. Well, I was going to say, I mean, on
privately
Tuesday,
educate your kids if you want to bring them here. It shouldn't cost the British taxpayer.
Tory MP Katie Lamb was writing in The Sun, and we had her on the show about that business that you mentioned earlier of you know, 100,000 extra foreign nationals now claiming universal benefit in the 1 year that Labour have been in, and I think it's over 1.2 million or something like that overall. And she said, you know, we have to introduce a rule which says if you're coming here from another country, you can't claim benefits until you've been here a certain amount of time. You know, you have to work in order to qualify for those kinds of benefits. It shouldn't be possible.
I don't think we should be bringing people in this country unless they are net contributors.
Yeah, exactly. It's what every other country does.
You need to be paying more than you take.
It's what every other country does.
Want you?
Exactly. Stephen Darby says this: Nick Leeson's financial mistake in 1995 cost £827 million. He spent 4 years in prison, and they made a film about it called Rogue Trader. £8 billion email, and the guy's still got a job. Well, welcome to the public sector. That's the way it goes. 6:36. We'll be back with more after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, and Chloe Dobbs is here at 6:38. This from Joe, who says, my daughter's been made homeless due to being in a private rental. The landlord sold the house. I have her and my 2 grandchildren living with me until they get housed in my 2-bedroom flat. I'm sleeping on the sofa. I was told it could be 3 to 5 years till they get housed, and they have offered me food vouchers for having them. Of course, this government are a joke, as there are never any houses for anyone to bid on. Yeah, I mean, that is the problem. There is a real shortage of affordable housing, or what they call social housing, and now there's going to be even more of a shortage shortage because they're giving it all to people who are coming here from other countries. But speaking of going to other countries, let's talk about Prince Harry, who seems to be on the front page of most of the papers today, front page of the Telegraph, and of course the Mail, looking like he's trying to impersonate his mother. It's quite sad, really, this, I think. You know, poor old Harry, constantly trying to find himself, and has now literally followed in the footsteps of his mother. You'll be too young to remember Diana when she was in her sort of pomp, and she was literally the most famous woman in the world, on the planet. Everybody loved her. Some people knew that she was slightly unhinged, and I don't make any apology for saying that because I covered a lot of what she did. But one of the most iconic pictures of her was walking through a minefield in Angola, wearing, you know, a helmet and a bulletproof vest, you know, and he's now done the same thing for the same organisation, the Halo Trust, highlighting the problem which, of course, she highlighted all those years ago, and nothing's really changed. But why he's doing it, I don't really know.
Well, it's always quite fun to recreate old family pictures,
I
isn't
suppose
it?
So.
You know, we often have people get their siblings in a similar outfit to they were in an old picture and recreate them, and it goes up on the wall. But what's interesting about this is you don't see Meghan anywhere in sight. No. Harry is, as you say, he's clearly been, you know, damaged by his mother's death, in that he's clearly ever since
never got over it,
been on a, you know, confused path, trying to find himself. You know, I think Meghan is is an absolute nightmare of a woman, and I do have my suspicions that he ended up with her out of, you know, some sort of trauma response to the. You know, he was just a very lost boy after losing his mother, and clearly had issues there. And now he's desperate to try and get his reputation back in the UK. I think Meghan's view is that she doesn't really care what the Brits think of her, so long as she's doing well in the US. She's much more popular in the US. And
she's not very popular there, though, because apparently the US have turned on them as well quite a bit.
Yeah, but apparently she's selling enough of her, you know, jams and rosés and whatnot. She does have a fan base there. She's very cringy, and the Americans have a much more higher threshold of how much cringe
Kinsey Schofield is going to be here later on today, and she's based out there, and she tells me that was probably true maybe a year or two ago, but not so much anymore. People have got sick to death of the sort of expensive jam and the rosé wine and the kind of, you know, the flogging off of everything to try and make a bit of money.
Yeah, I'm not saying that she's incredibly popular, but regardless of how popular she is in the US, it is the case that Harry seems to care much more, at least, you know, in recent weeks and months, about his reputation in the UK. We've just had staff from his new royal household, as they've created, coming over for a meeting with the King to try and get back on good terms with him, which was quite a big thing. And now you see him, you know, doing various media stunts without Meghan anywhere near in sight. They've had this professional separation. I'm interested to see if that ever leads to an actual separation and they get divorced. I do predict that that will happen one day, to be honest. I'd be interested to see if he does try to break ties with her and come back to the UK. But it is hard to put all the blame on Meghan for everything when, you know, not that long ago he did that sit-down interview with the BBC where he said, I don't know how long my dad has got left, which is an absolute no-go. You should not say such a thing. I mean, look what happened to Kate Middleton when there was so much speculation about her health, when we didn't know what was going on and everyone was saying she was dead. The last thing that the King needs is his son doing an interview saying, I'm not sure if he's got long left to live.
Exactly. Again,
so
Kinsey
after that, I thought, you know what, I had a bit of sympathy for him before, but after that, I just don't think that he deserves to have his reputation fixed.
No, because he's made his own bed, right, and he's now lying in it. And he's praising Angola's commitment to landmine clearance, which seems a bit ironic given that his mother was there in 1997. It's now 2025, so we're talking nearly, 30-odd years later.
It was clearly just for photo.
And they still haven't got rid of the landmines, though.
I know.
My point.
He's not fixing the world, ending poverty, bringing about world peace. He's got a photo. Let's be clear about this. That's what he's done.
And then he said during Invictus Games in February, Archie was asking about landmines. And if you believe that, you know, I've got some swampland to sell you in Florida. You know, like his infant son is asking him about landmines. Really? Are you sure? So, yeah, it's a pretty cynical look, I think. And, of course, as we always say about people like this, you know, if you wanted to be photographed doing it, that was obviously why you did it. But if you wanted to not be photographed doing it because you really, 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 really care about landmines in Angola, why would you bother having pictures taken? But there we are. He's managed to get himself on the front page of the Daily Mail and the front page of the Daily Telegraph. So I suppose he will say that was a job well done. Morning, Mike, says Darren in Cornwall. These Afghans coming over, surely there must be paperwork proving what they did for our troops. If they ain't got proof, they don't come in. Also, if 19,000 names got leaked, why are we taking treble that? It's a joke, this government. I feel like I don't want to work, so I'm paying for this rubbish. So I'm not paying for this rubbish. This is a problem. You know, the whole point of the list, the 18,000 people on the list, was that they were supposed to be being vetted, and the dopey Royal Marine who sent it to the wrong people was supposed to be trying to get people's names verified as to what they actually did, and instead he leaked the whole list, which means that the government then panicked and decided to bring them all in without vetting them. So we don't actually know what any of them did. Somebody, I mean, this sounds probably really far-fetched, but I was talking to Jeremy Kyle on his show yesterday, and somebody rang in and said, for all we know, the Taliban have already rounded up the 18,000, killed them, and replaced them with 18,000 other people who are all now living here.
Yeah.
Which is not, I mean...
It could potentially be a security risk.
It could be a potential security risk. It's absolutely extraordinary. Voice note from Perry.
Morning, Mike. Like most self-employed people, got a big old lump to pay at the end of July. Already getting me reminders through from the tax office. You know, your payment's due by the 31st. You know, usual stuff. I started to think, why? You know, I've had a bad year. I've had to dip into my tax money because I had some major repairs done on some of the work vehicles. You know, it's going to be hardship, but I will pay it. But I am thinking, why? When I look at everyone else getting everything for nothing, I really am starting to think I might just give up, you know, and just do what everyone else does, sit at home, claim benefits. I mean, some mornings I do wake up, I don't want to go to work. I'm not keen on broccoli, so I might be entitled to a mobility car. So, yeah, I really am starting to think that way, mate, you know. Why work and everyone else gets the benefit from my taxes?
Yeah, I mean, an awful lot of people are messaging me with that kind of sort of idea that we get up really early in the morning, we strive, we try and do well. Every year things get more expensive. Every year taxes go up. And he's right. I mean, I've had a note from the tax man saying, this is what you owe us. Pay it by the end of July. You know, we've got what another 10 days or so to get on with that. Got to find thousands of pounds, particularly people who do self-employed. It's absolutely disgraceful. People are sick to death of it. They really are. Ridiculous. Coming up, we're going to speak to a Middle East expert and a journalist based in Tel Aviv because, of course, there was a BBC leak yesterday, as if they haven't got enough problems. The woman who's in charge of their news division basically said in an internal memo to people on Zoom that Hamas politicians are not terrorists. So actually, we didn't really make any mistakes showing that video, that Gaza documentary, because even though the boy who was in it, whose father was a Hamas government official, that's okay. We didn't make a mistake because Hamas are not actually terrorists. They're actually the government. Incredible stuff. 6:47.
The reality is that if you're an Afghan male here, your chances of being a criminal, a sex offending criminal, rape, assault, sexual assault, is 23 times higher than the national average.
Wow.
So we are importing people, some of whom are going to be immediately committing pretty horrible crimes, and some of whom, especially from the Pashtun belt, have a sort of cultural attitude to child sodomy, dare I say it, underage marriage, which is completely at odds with our society.
Is reform something you've thought about, JG?
Look, I've been a member of the Conservative Party, Jeremy, for 18 years, my entire adult life. Tragic as that may sound. I've never felt so despondent and disheartened with the Conservative Party, but having been a member for that long, seen the good, the bad and the ugly, I really want to believe that at some stage we're going to fully acknowledge our mistakes, completely understand and empathise why some of my former colleagues, like Jake Berry, have chosen to go to Reform UK, and of course,
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 10 minutes to 7. Chloe Dobbs is here. We've got a little bit more time. We've got a couple more stories to do. But just before that, we're going to take a quick trip over to the Middle East. Asher Westrop-Evans is going to join us, a journalist based in Tel Aviv, because it's been yet another dreadful, ghastly week for the BBC. Forget about what's been going on with MasterChef, but the report that came out about their ridiculous documentary, which starred a young boy whose father was a Hamas government official. Head of News, Deborah Turness, has apologised for all manner of things over the course of the last few days that have happened at the BBC, including that their sort of due diligence should have been better to discover who this boy was and what his connection was to Hamas. But here's what she said in an organised video that she broadcast to various journalists inside the BBC. Have a look.
I think it's really important that we are clear that Abdullah's father was a deputy agriculture minister and therefore, was a member of the Hamas-run government, which is different to being part of the military wing of Hamas. And I think externally, it's often simplified that he was in Hamas, and I think it's an important point of detail that we need to continually remind people of the difference and of that connection.
So we need to remind people at the BBC of the difference between a Hamas terrorist and a Hamas political official. Let's ask Asher whether he thinks there is a difference. Asher, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike.
Extraordinary statement, this, from the head of news, Deborah Turness, isn't it?
Absolutely ludicrous, Mike. I mean, I'd like to pull an example. If we say that Osama bin Laden was just part of Al-Qaeda's governmental and organizational structure and wasn't himself flying the plane, therefore he's part of a different category. I mean, what a ludicrous statement that would be. And for anyone to say that in public, they'd be immediately pilloried. For Deborah to come out and make this statement of distinction obviously flies in the face of any sense of civics and understanding of who she thinks that these Hamas fighters are supporting, of who she thinks that these Hamas politicians are helping, to keep in power, and what exactly she thinks Hamas deputy minister was doing on October 7th, 2023, when the fighters were running in and massacring Israelis throughout the streets. I mean, it is absolutely an unbelievable statement, and really just compounds and doubles down on this already atrocious behaviour by the BBC, this unwillingness to do the key due diligence that is needed at a basic level of journalism, let alone, the sort of documentary filmmaking that they purport to make, claiming for high-level documentary filmmaking, to not do that basic due diligence, and then to try and obfuscate. I mean, that sort of credulity just is beyond belief.
Well, because the fact remains that, despite apparently several times of asking the documentary makers, the production unit that was doing it, whether or not this boy was connected in some way to Hamas, apparently they never got an answer. And they just went ahead and published the documentary anyway. So,
Well, exactly. It becomes increasingly damning as we see the timeline of events coming out, of messages back and forth in the wake of this report. As far back as late 2024, there was already serious questions being raised as to what are these people? Are there Hamas affiliations? And in a authoritarian regime, a militant area like the Gaza Strip, do not believe that a child you might be speaking to could have Hamas affiliations or at some level could be influenced by Hamas, and to not do that due diligence. I myself, a journalist of many years, have worked in the documentary space. I mean, that's just basic research that needs to be done. Those sort of questions need to be asked, confirmed, verified, background checked at the most basic of levels. And you would expect the BBC, with their claims to high standards of journalism and high standards of due diligence, would be a little bit more forthright and considerate and actually get the paperwork in front of them, make sure it's checked, understand the identities of exactly who they're talking about. This is not overly complex stuff. This was not some great web of lies. The production company supposedly knew who this boy was and who his father was. This wasn't deep research that needed to be done. It was right there if the BBC were just willing to look past their own goals, which is to get a documentary fluff piece out there that's effectively Hamas propaganda.
Yeah, absolutely right. Asher, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Asher Westrop Evans there, journalist based in Tel Aviv. It's not been a great week, has it, for the BBC, Chloe? I mean, in addition to Deborah Turness now making out that Hamas are okay as long as it's not the terrorist bit of it, we can make documentaries about them. Also, we've got all over the papers today the MasterChef in crisis story after they sacked both Greg Wallace and John Turode. It just goes from bad to worse for them, doesn't it?
And it was pretty embarrassing for them having both the big report come out on Greg Wallace, finding that, I think 45 allegations had been upheld, and then having the report come out about the Gaza documentary as well.
All in the same week.
Yeah, and just off the back of what Asher was saying about the vetting process there, I mean, when I did my show with Channel 4, I mean, the vetting was insane. I mean, they know every single detail about me, and it's not BBC are saying like, oh well, it was a production company. I'm like, when I did my show, production company. They did vetting and whatnot, but Channel 4 had to sign off on everyone. They needed to know everything about everyone, all of us. There's no way the BBC can just hold their hands up and say, oh, it wasn't us, it was the production company. The commissioners at the BBC, they've got to sign up on everything. They would have known exactly what was going on.
Right. Absolutely right. And the same goes for the MasterChef sort of crisis, crisis of their own making. Everybody knew what Greg Wallace was like. Everybody knew what he was doing. They didn't do anything about it. And then suddenly somebody went, oh goodness me, we better fix this. And now he's sacked, and he probably never worked there again. And John Turode, however, is going to still continue to do his show on ITV. So I don't know what that tells you about ITV, but ITV are carrying on. Him and his wife Lisa, apparently. John
it sounds like he only had
kitchen.
one remark he's in trouble for, as opposed to
but
Greg
so why are they
Wallace
sacking him then? It's kind of they
well,
can't,
I guess
they can't seem to get it right.
They're being ultra careful now, and I guess they figured, well, if one of the MasterChef stars has gone, we may as well just get rid of the whole lot of them.
And now they have to worry about whether
and
they
there will
can
be an argument of
various shows that they've got in the can. They've got various series. They don't know whether or not they can actually suspend the shows and whether they can ever show them again. They just seem to get everything wrong.
And then we've also got this story in the Sun as well, with the huge salaries that celebs are getting off the BBC. I mean, we all thought it was crazy that Hugh Edwards was on something like 500 grand, right? And then you're seeing
I think he was on 700 at one point.
And then you're seeing here that actually you've got all these celebrity salaries that don't have to be declared in the usual proper, contracted salaried staff.
BBC Studios or something.
And you've got people like Michael McIntyre, Louis Theroux, Graham Norton, Stacey Solomon creaming millions out of the BBC every year, far more than the presenters get that we normally talk about. And when we've got, it would be okay if they're a private company and that's what they decide with their advertising revenue to spend, but we're talking about the BBC who takes money off licence fee payers. The licence fee, it costs more than Netflix and these other streaming platforms, and a lot of people who are paying that fee, they don't even use it. They use the Netflix far more than the BBC, and then finding out that they are spending millions and millions every year on all these celebrities, it's just an absolute joke.
It is.
And you combine this all together with the other stories we've looked at when we find out we've got billions and billions being spent on Afghans, giving them free homes and whatnot, and it just feels like whether it's the BBC, it's the government, whatever it is in this country, your hard-working money is being stolen from you and spent on superfluous rubbish.
It is, unfortunately. Just one more to mention, we'll pick this up later on the show. Page 17 of The Sun, prevent unfit for purpose. Just as we said it was some weeks ago. Some of you will remember I did an interview with Lord Carlisle, who was very pompous and tried very hard to tell me that I should know my place and shut up, and that Prevent was doing doing a wonderful job, and just a few bad apples slipped through the net. I'm afraid not. According to a new report which came out yesterday from Lord David Anderson, basically teachers had flagged the Southport monster, whose name I don't want to give out, and Ali Harbi Ali, who killed David, the MP in Southend.
Well, I mean, Axel Rudikubana was referred to Prevent 3 times, and David Amos's killer, this guy, he was an ISIS supporter. What did Prevent do? They had a cup of coffee with him, and then they let him go.
I know, absolutely shocking.
These people would be alive today, probably, if Prevent did their job.
Exactly right, if they did what they said on the tin. Chloe, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. We'll be back after the news with loads more from Talk.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 7:03. Morning has broken. It is Thursday the 17th of July, ladies and gentlemen. This has not been a great week for Britain. It's not been a great week for the government. It's not been a great week for anybody, really. The BBC have had an absolute mare. The government yesterday could have had the opportunity to discuss in great detail exactly what was going on with the leak of the Afghanistan list, the kill list as it's been called, the 18,000 people who are now living here, 18,500 actually, who have been brought here as a result of a drastic and dreadful mistake made by a member of the Royal Marines who sent out an email with 18,500 names on it, basically saying that these people had all helped Britain during their war in Afghanistan. The Taliban were supposedly going to be murdering all of these people. You know the story. So we decided to offer them sanctuary here. It now turns out today they've all come here and they've all managed to find lawyers since they got here. And on the front page of The Sun today, Afghan's £1 billion blunder blunder compo. It turns out defence chiefs have braced for a £1 billion compensation bill over a data breach which revealed Afghans who supported UK forces. Around 100,000 people, that is what the paper says, were put at risk of Taliban death squads when their names or loved ones' names were revealed in 2022. So the numbers now jump to 100,000. Not only is it going to cost us £7 billion to house all these people, not only are people going to be moved out of homes so that they can be moved into them, not only are people who have bought very, very expensive homes across the country getting used to the fact that down the road there's an Afghan family there living for free on the taxpayer. It now turns out that they're actually going to be claiming compensation because they managed to find a few human rights lawyers to take the government to court. It's absolutely extraordinary. This morning, I'm getting the sense that many of you are just fed up. I've got a piece in The Sun today saying people are so fed up, this is the final straw, it's time for a general election. Here's some of what you've been saying.
Up at 2:30 again this morning, and after all this drama yesterday, this morning, I really don't know why I bothered.
I'm so depressed as well. You know, when you think things can't get any worse, you know, it does.
Has this country gone completely bonkers? How is this country going to possibly recover from this? I genuinely can't see it. It's gone too far.
It has gone too far. An awful lot of you are saying exactly that. We're going to speak to James Price, former government advisor, coming up in this show. Colonel James Sunderland also is here a little bit later on as well. And Sarah Pochin from Reform will give us her view of what is going on. The BBC also in the firing line after it turns out their head of news said there's a big difference between a Hamas terrorist and a Hamas government official. So actually, it's not a problem what we did with that documentary, paying the son of a Hamas official, because he's not really a terrorist after all. 0344 499 1000. And we'll also be talking about Liam Gallagher. He's been drinking vinegar tea to keep his voice good. We'll talk about that as well. Plus prevent. It doesn't prevent murder. This is Morning Glory, 5 minutes past 7. Let's get it on. This from Linda in Deal. Mike, great show. I'm so angry with this cover-up. So this government screwed my parents over with the winter fuel payment, and they tried to screw me because I'm on PIP. Yet this government and previous ones have handed out billions to anyone and everyone. This country makes me physically sick. Mike says, Susan, I'm so distraught. I'm beside myself with what's happening to our beautiful country. I'm 70. I don't have any children, but I grieve for all of our young British citizens who will never know how lovely our country was and be proud of Great Britain. I'm wrecked. Please take care. I think that is a sentiment which is shared by many, many people this morning as you just look around at the state of the country that we are in. There are some wonderful parts of it. There are some wonderful people in it. There are some beautiful spots that you can go and sit and have a picnic in. But as the months and the weeks and the years go on, it seems to be falling down around its ears. James Price is here, former government advisor. James, very good morning to you.
Good morning, my friend. You're right. It's not been a fun week, has it?
It hasn't.
Been emblematic of a lot of things that have been going wrong for a long time.
I mean, somebody pointed out earlier on that Nick Leeson caused something like £750 million of a loss to Barings Bank. He ended up going to jail for 4 years and wrote a book called Rogue Trader. We've got a guy who's cost this country upwards of £8 billion so far as we know, a Royal Marine who sent this email out by mistake. And yet he hasn't been punished. And I think that is also a symptom of what's wrong with the public sector, what's wrong with our country. And the Labour government say, oh, we're not going to conduct a witch hunt to find this guy. Well, why not?
Yeah, quite right. I mean, one of the most upsetting bits of all this saga for me is the fact that there was a blunder on the military side of things, because my broad understanding and the limited experience I had with that part of the infrastructure of the state, should we call it, is that those are some of the few guys left who are highly competent. And I know the vast majority of them are. It'd be interesting to know in some kind of inquiry, without necessarily compromising operational security type things, how and why this sort of mistake happened. Why was it an Excel spreadsheet? Why not a proper secure database, for example? Is it just kind of crappy old technology that should have been properly funded and updated in the same way that for a long time in places like Afghanistan, the soldiers didn't have the kind of body armor and the vehicles they needed? Or was it just human error? Was it complacency? There's an element of that I think we need to get into. But your broader point there, Mike, is so right that across the whole of the public sector, if you make a mistake, it's somebody else who is punished for it. And the only way you can get rid of, at least in my experience, central Whitehall civil servants is you promote them somewhere else to go and have more power to cause more mayhem some other place.
Yeah, That is the kind of, it's the sort of the Peter principle, isn't it? You know, you just sort of keep promoting somebody out of the way so they can't really do any harm, but then they end up being in charge. And you kind of go, how did that happen? And you go, well, because you kept advancing them. You just kept doing it.
Yeah, exactly right. Experts say this is the one thing we didn't want to happen when you suddenly have someone completely incompetent in charge of these things. Well, we've had people who are completely incompetent in charge of large bits of the government for a long time. Yeah. Another bit that I think that it touches, the real scandalous bit for me, is this idea of the super injunction. As a journalist, you must be spitting feathers about it.
Totally.
I don't think any other Western countries do this. You can have sort of suppression orders, places like Australia and Canada, but this idea that you're not even allowed to report that something is being withheld, I think is deeply suspicious. Why? Is it just because of the operational security bit? Well, the Taliban said that they had this leaked data straight away, and I think some of the information coming out on terms of what you would call in Parliament handling, in terms of how you get media and stuff out, suggests that it wasn't just a security problem. It was about the fact that the British public would know that it was really unpopular. That starts to get really, really dangerous for the health and legitimacy of our democracy.
Yeah, it totally does. You're right. And I mean, I was really, really struck yesterday by the fact that at PMQs, Prime Minister's Questions, the one place where you'd expect this to have been discussed in full, all we got was a statement from Keir Starmer, which I think we can play. Let's have a look at what he had to say.
There's always been support across this House for the United Kingdom fulfilling our obligations to Afghans who served alongside British forces. We warned in opposition about Conservative management of this policy, and yesterday the Defence Secretary set out the full extent of the failings that we inherited. A major data breach, a super injunction, a secret route that has already cost hundreds of millions of pounds. Ministers who served under the party opposite have serious questions to answer about how this was ever allowed to happen. The chair of the Defence Committee has indicated that he intends to hold further inquiries. I welcome that and hope that those who were in office at the time will welcome that scrutiny.
And that was it. You know, nothing else was said. You know, Kemi Badenoch stood up and as we waited for her first question to fire in on the whole Afghan scandal, knowing even that the Tories were the ones responsible for it, she didn't do it. She went for the economy instead. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, you know, surely to God, even if you know that the Tories are as much to blame, if not more to blame, you surely would go into Keir Starmer and say, well, why did you keep this super injunction on for at least a year?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it feels a bit like a kind of non-aggression pact through it. And I think that because there were maybe more details still coming out, who knows where the sort of the splashback would land on everybody. One lot who didn't hold back in putting the boot in, obviously, were the Reform Party and Zia Youssef throwing around wild and inaccurate accusations against people like Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick that led to Suella Braverman's husband quitting Reform. And then, of course, it pops up and turns out that Richard Tice was very supportive of resettling lots of Afghans. And I know you've got Sarah Poachin on in a minute. But it turned out that she was very happy to attend lots of refugees welcome events for Afghans as well. So I think that we've got to be careful here that there were people in Afghanistan who genuinely were very helpful to our efforts there, whether or not you think we should have been there in the first place or what you were doing. There were people who were at risk there, and it was probably the right thing for Brits to relocate them.
I don't think there's any doubt about
people
that.
Who weren't, and we need to get into the detail of that and not do what Zia Youssef did and just go around slagging people off, and I think hurting his party's credibility as a decent outfit as a result.
I know. I mean, I think the point is that the people of this country, and it depends on, if you watch the BBC or Sky, you would think that that was the only consideration. You would think that, you know, what are these horrible people saying about Afghanistan? What are they saying about these nice Afghan people who came here to help us? You know, there are so many different angles to this, but what is very clear, and John Healey's actually confirmed it, is that of the 18,500 people who are currently here in this country who have come from Afghanistan, most of them shouldn't actually be here. Most of them did not have anything to do with helping the British forces at all. We just don't know. But we're pretty sure that they didn't, because if you think about it, we had 12,000 troops there, right? We had a bunch of interpreters, we had a bunch of cleaners, we had a bunch of people who did what they did and are very welcome to come and stay here rather than be murdered by the Taliban. But you should be talking about a few hundred and possibly a very minimal few thousand. You should not be talking about, you know, 18,500 rising to 43,000, possibly rising to over 100,000. That's the problem.
Yeah, absolutely right. And which is why we've got to get it right and actually work out sensibly who should be here and who shouldn't. I mean, some part of this latter scheme that has been kept secret until now allows people to apply to come here from anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the Taliban have got the kind of special forces now. So it's not like the Israeli Mossad going and nabbing Eichmann in Argentina in the 60s. You're going to find some translator who's living it up in Norway or somewhere like that. That kind of stuff is obviously ludicrous. And I do think that we get time and time again the big broad point that it's the British people who always come last, whether it's their wallets or their safety. And the uncomfortable bit about this, the reason that I think that some people are so angry and so right to be angry, if we've not got the good eggs who are coming over, a bad Afghan egg is a really very bad egg indeed. When you look at the kind of statistics of how likely they are to commit extra horrible crimes and things like that, to the point where Pakistan has managed to deport about 1 million Afghans in the past year. No one seemed to raise any eyebrow about that. And Iran has managed to do the same. And they were deporting them whilst Israel was blowing all of their defences to hell. So, and we can't even deport actual, horrible paedophile wrong-uns because the ECHR says they've got a right to a family life. So I think it lands at exactly the wrong moment for the legitimacy of the British state, when it's so clear that a mixture of the courts and the civil service and the politicians all seem to care more about these sorts of people who we know are very often wrong-uns than about the livelihoods of British people or their welfare.
And this is what I'm saying in my piece in The Sun today, that, people have just had enough. The sense that I get from them this week is that, we work really hard. There's plenty of people in this country who break their backs every single week to try and provide for them, for their families, for themselves. They don't want to go on benefits. They don't want to be taking anything from the government. But they've all, particularly hard-working, independent traders, sole traders, people that are self-employed, they're all going to have to pay a bucket load of their money to the HMRC this week because it's, coming up to the end of July, and that's when you pay your 6 monthly stipend to the government. And they look around and they see all these people, whether they're already here, because let's face it, we've got plenty of scroungers who are home-born, already here, but all coming from another place where they're just getting given everything. And I've had call after call after call from people who say, we live on this housing estate, we've paid our mortgage, we're paying our mortgage every month. There's people now living down the road in the same size house as me who have got it for nothing. And that really is distressing to people, and it's making them think, what the hell am I doing this for? Why am I bothering?
Yeah, and they're right to be concerned about that sort of stuff. And the fact that this government in particular, the last Conservative government, did do a lot on welfare to try and make it better, to try and make it fairer. But I think it had got so bad, if people remember under Gordon Brown, it was much more economic sense to someone to stay at home, sat on benefits, than to try and go and get a job under the new Labour years. And it's got back to that point here already. We saw how Labour were completely incapable of cutting any of that budget at all, even though it's absolutely skyrocketed since COVID, to a point where by some metrics, these people are saying that a quarter of Brits are disabled, which just means that the word doesn't mean anything, and it makes genuinely disabled people more worse off. And of course, there was this mad stat, Mike, that we spend £1 billion every single year on universal credit benefits welfare to foreign nationals. So people come up. I thought I took crazy pills when I heard that kind of story. 12 billion here and 12 billion there. Eventually, we're talking about real money, right?
Exactly,
and we realise that our debt
interest
payments
and how many
are
times,
higher than our defence.
And how many times have you been told by lefties in particular, oh, it's rubbish, it's a right-wing trope to say that, foreigners get benefits. They're not allowed to. They don't get benefits. Well, they bloody well do. And in many cases, they get more benefits because of the fact that they're foreign. And certainly these people from Afghanistan have come here because they come here with nothing, effectively. They get a free house, they get free schooling, they get free dental care, they get free doctors, they get a sort of advanced, up the ladder so that they can see doctors if they want to. And it's just, 2 weeks ago I was talking about this. People ask about fairness in society, and it's just not fair. If you've worked all your life, and you've managed to scrimp and scrape together enough money to put down on a house, and you managed to finally get yourself a key to your own little kingdom, and you're paying through the nose every single week as the mortgage price goes up every single month, and then you see, look, there's somebody down the road there living in the same house as me, but getting a load of free white goods being delivered. Oh, that's nice. They're getting a new fridge, getting a new telly. It's just not fair.
Right, and I think that is the absolute key point Mike, about all of the ills and wrongs that are afflicting Britain. This idea of fairness. Talk a lot about British values of tolerance and all that kind of stuff. I think one of the key fundamentals of this is this idea of fairness and of fair play.
Yeah.
But if you bear with me a second, if you listen to somebody like Jonathan Haidt, who's a kind of leading neuroscientist, will say that lefties and people on the right have a different conception of that word and what it means. If you're on the left, fairness means equality, or these days it means equity. The idea that no matter who you are and whatever else, everybody should be treated exactly the same. And if you haven't got stuff, you should be given it to balance things out.
Yeah.
People on the right think that, and I think that you'll probably agree with me, and most sensible people at home will agree with me on this, that on the right, we tend to think of fairness as meaning something like proportionality.
Yeah.
So you kind of get back what you get in, and if you work hard, you should get to keep it, and if you're a good egg, you should be rewarded.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a key fundamental difference. And socialists all want the former one, and all those of us who are patriotic Brits who love our country and want to just do right by our families and our businesses and our God and whatever else, we want that latter one. And we know the people coming over here who haven't worked, haven't contributed, who don't love our culture, whether it's coming over on this scheme, coming over on a small boat, or coming over on some dodgy visa and then disappearing away, are breaking that inherent sense of fair play. And if we don't sort it out soon, I think the kind of broiling, febrile social tensions that we're seeing, especially over this summer, are really going to go over the top, and it's going to be very, very unpleasant.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Good to talk to you. James Price, former government advisor. Thank you very much indeed. As if by magic, how about this from Chris? Mike, I'm 37. My wife and I have worked since the day we left school and paid our taxes and national insurance every year. This year, I had enough of paying for everyone else, so I took a £30,000 pay cut and changed jobs. Half the stress, half the hours, and the maddest thing is we are only £80 a week worse off because of the reduced tax bill and child tax credit my wife is now entitled to. We're 90% done with the United Kingdom and are looking at other options to leave. There's no benefit to doing well in the UK anymore. Great show, keep it up. That is, I'm so sorry to say, that is a very, very familiar view that so many people are giving us this week. And this kind of current state of things has been going on for a while. Margaret in Birmingham says, my husband's 80 in a care home with dementia. Worked one job for 43 years. If he wants a visit from a chiropodist, he has to pay. My daughter has MS. She used to go to work at 5 a.m. My uncle was killed in action. What for? The people of this country are at the back of the queue. It's so depressing to hear these things. Let's get a voice note from Laura.
Morning, Mike. Laura in Wiltshire. This migrant story just makes me so mad, like everybody else, because it's one rule for some and another rule for others. My daughter's fabulous American boyfriend of 2.5 years, who is self-employed, can earn his money from America anywhere, really is struggling to come and spend time here with her to check whether they want to get married, because he can't have residency. And he doesn't want anything from this state. He just wants to be able to rent property here with her. He doesn't want anything from the government. And yet they're super strict, and we're going to have to jump through all sorts of hoops for him to try and do that. And these people are coming in with 5 children, wanting everything, none of the same values as us. It seems outrageous. If you do it by the books, it just doesn't work. Anyway, great show, Mike.
Laura, thank you very much indeed. It's true. People are getting sick to the back teeth of the way this country has sort of, mistreated them and just not appreciated them and just take. If you are willing to give it, if you are paying taxes, your taxes are going up. You get harassed every single 5 minutes by HMRC. Why haven't you paid? Oh, you're 5 minutes late. We're going to fine you. We're going to give you a penalty. People don't pay tax. People get benefits. They don't get hassled. They just get everything that they want, and they get it given to them because it's paid for by you and I. It's ridiculous, absolutely mad. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Colonel James Sunderland, former Conservative MP. Also, we're going to look into what is being done about the state of Prevent. You might remember Lord Carlisle and I had a little bit of a dust-up some weeks ago, probably a few months ago now. We'll remind everybody about that. And, of course, we'll keep taking your calls as well. 0344 499 1000. A bit of breaking news, by the way. The rate of UK unemployment, just for the sake of Rachel Reeves, has increased to 4.7%, basically in the 3 months to May, 4.7% up. And UK average regular earnings growth has decreased to 5% from 5.2% in June. So all bad news for the economy. Inflation, we were told, was up yesterday, 3.6%, the highest since January 2024. It's all going horribly wrong for Rachel Reeves. Wouldn't you know it? 7:23.
This is an example of yet again where the British government, at the time, the Conservative government, and we know the Home Secretary was Suella Braverman, the Immigrations Minister was Robert Jenrick, you know, and here they are. They've been named and they've been shamed today for allowing this to go ahead. Yes, there was a super injunction. Why didn't they resign over this issue? You know, the fact is that this went on under their watch. There's no vetting of these people that are coming in.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. 26 minutes past 7, actually. Morning, Mike. Great show as usual, says Warwick from Devon. Sadly, with the latest lunacy, I actually believe our once great country is in its death throes. And how depressing is that? Lash says, dear Mike, let me get this right. We are bringing people into the UK, giving them a house, a life, healthcare, schooling, all paid for by the taxpayer, and then making them cash rich through compensation. I have no words. Well, this is kind of what we've become. The compensation culture is alive and well in this country. Everybody wants a piece of the action. There's plenty of lawyers that you can get yourself an ambulance chasing. You know, no win, no fee, all of that sort of thing. But for these people who we have rescued effectively from a murderous regime in Afghanistan to then turn around and say we're going to sue you because you didn't do it soon enough is absolutely and utterly disgraceful. Paul in Nantwich in Cheshire says, I can understand how people are starting to think what's the point of going to work as they see all the natives and foreigners getting benefits for doing nothing. Government is running the country for the wrong people. Government policy should be for the majority, those that work hard, respect law and order and need help every now and then. Exactly right. Absolutely incredible where we are. Let's get a voice note from Brian.
Morning, Mike. On the immigrant thing again, these Afghans. You know, how come we're told the list, there were 19,000 names on this list. So how come suddenly there's 100,000 people could be at risk? You know, are we talking, you know, Rachel Reeves type accountancy? You know, and with all these people, you know, the Taliban could be telling these people to sue the British government, get the money, and it'll all go to the Taliban, and they'll say, look, you sue the government, we'll take the money, and you can live. You know, there's so many ifs and buts about this. It's very strange, and we should just say to these people, you know, if you're going to stay in this country, you've got to drop your claim for compensation. If you want to go ahead with compensation, we will not give you sanctuary. End of. Full stop.
Brian, absolutely spot on. Quite right, too. You know, here's a free house. No, I want some compensation as well. OK, then. Well, you can either have the house or the compensation. Up to you. You want the compensation, you don't get the free house. You know, this place is a joke, isn't it? Let's talk to Colonel James Sunderland, former Conservative MP. Peter in Norwich, first of all. Very good morning to you, James.
Good morning, Mike.
Do British Army veterans who served in Afghanistan get a free house? Do they get unlimited social care and public money? I think not. Put British people first. Surely that is not racist. It's common sense. I'm getting a lot of complaints this morning, James, about this ridiculous story that people who we've rescued from Afghanistan, who may or may not wish to be revealed as those who actually helped the British forces, because many of them didn't, because they've all come anyway. The idea that they're now going to sue us because we didn't do it soon enough is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, if you look back to what happened a couple of years ago, there was a leak. It was a spreadsheet of about 18,000 names. People that had been linked with the British government in Afghanistan, people who were at risk. And quite clearly, when the leak happened, I suspect that the British government at the time, MOD, simply accelerated a process that may have happened anyway by virtue of the fact that these people were applying for the Arab scheme. But to date, I believe that the figure that's come across is about 6,000. There are protocols in place now that John Healey's put in place again, which is to make sure that those that are coming here are those who are genuinely at risk and genuinely asylum seekers.
Yeah, but I mean, the problem is John Healey, the Secretary of State for Defence, has already admitted that many of those who are already here, of the 18,500, would not have actually qualified under the scheme because the only reason they were brought here because of sort of panic by the last government, who said, well, we better just get everybody in because they might get killed by the Taliban. And of those who are still waiting to come in, shall we say, if they're in so much danger, how come they haven't been killed already?
I was a PPS private secretary at the MOD at the time. I wasn't aware of this decision at all until 2 days ago when I saw it in the news, and I was also quite shocked by it. What I can tell you, though, as a military man, and I talk with a straight bat, I hate woke. I can't stand the cancel culture or this woke culture that we've got in the UK at the moment, and that's why I became a politician. And I was voted out, as you well know, because of the split of the reform vote. I'm quite concerned about it because we need to make sure that everybody coming to the UK and settling in the UK is a bona fide, legitimate claimant. We do have genuine asylum seekers that I believe that we do have some responsibility for. But we've got to draw a clear line between these Afghans that have come here that are in danger, and between that and all of these people coming here with no claim whatsoever to be in the UK. And it's those that we need to turn around.
Right. But how is that going to work now? Because having given them sort of sanctuary, if you like, and many of them have come here over the course of, say, the last 18 months or so, possibly even longer. I know that an awful lot of people came towards the back end of 2023. Many of them came in February 24. We've had people telling us precisely when they've arrived because they've seen them arriving in their streets, they've seen them arriving in their communities, and they've seen them, you know, kind of en masse being given free housing. And so that's all been happening while it was being denied, if you like. But, I mean, having done that, what are you going to do? You can't really go down now through the list and start saying to people, well, you know, we've given you this house and we've got your children in school, but I'm afraid we're going to kick you out and send you back to Afghanistan. It's not going to happen, is it?
No, I think once people are here, they're here. I mean, you know, I'm not condoning in any way the mass welcoming of groups of people who want to be in the UK because it's a better place to live than where they've come from. I think in this particular case, though, we do need to recognise the threats that existed. A lot of these people have been killed by the Taliban. There was a clear threat to life when that chaos happened, when the government collapsed in Afghanistan. And I think what we need to be doing, Mike, is rather than demonising people, we need to recognise the contribution that they made to the British government. We need to be absolutely clear with our own diligence so that people are coming here that are bona fide only.
Yeah. But that's the government's fault, James. It's the Conservative government's fault that people are being demonised. It's not anybody else's fault. It was a military man who worked in the Ministry of Defence who made the initial blunder, right? John Healey says we're not going to have a witch hunt to find out who it is and go after them. Well, I don't see why not, because it's costing us billions and billions of pounds as a result, right? But the reason that people are being demonised is because we don't know who they are. And, you know, you being a military man will know for sure that the numbers of people helping the British Army, which was a relatively small contingent of a few thousand soldiers, right? Many of whom fought bravely, some of whom died. It was a horrible situation, you know, but there are not 100,000 Afghans that helped British troops. There are not even 20,000. It's a hugely inflated number, surely.
Yeah, but I think different figures are doing the rounds, Mike, once again. I mean, figures of 100,000 doing the rounds, 18,000 names on the spreadsheet, 6,000 that are here. So ultimately, what we have to do, if this policy is to fly, and my view is that it has flown under successive governments, rightly or wrongly, we just got to make sure that that diligence is done so that people coming here
it's too late, though, isn't it?
Absolutely bona fide. Yeah, it's too late. It's too late for those that are here right now. It's too late for the millions that have come here under Blair's open doors policy. You know, the Conservative government, criticise them at will if you want to, but don't forget the Conservatives got Brexit done. For the first 10 years of our time in government, we were beholden to EU law. We got out of the EU, we delivered Brexit. Then for the following 3 years, we put legislation in place, Nationalities and Borders Act, Illegal Migration Bill, Rwanda Safety Plan, which effectively fixed our borders. In my humble view, had Rishi not made the decision to go early, we would have had flights off the ground and we would have ultimately stopped this nonsense that's the small boats in the Channel. So ultimately, the Tories have been demonised as well, but we were moving in the right direction. We've now got a situation, because of how we voted last year, that we've got this completely woke, useless Labour government. We're now seeing that in terms of employment, in terms of inflation, in terms of the business bill. So ultimately, you get what you wish for. And ultimately, I was confident as a Tory MP that we would have solved this had we had a bit more time.
Yeah, but the problem now for the Tories is that, despised as they were, and that you saw the results of that at the last election, effectively, they're now even more despised because of this super injunction in which Grant Shapps applied for and got, in order to try and keep the public from even ever finding out about this dreadful blunder and ridiculous policy.
Yeah, look, I'm not defending the policy at all because I wasn't aware of it myself.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is you can't just stop. You can't just decide unilaterally that we're going to bypass parliamentary democracy, we're going to bypass electoral democracy, and we're just going to keep things from the public because we don't want to be embarrassed about it. That's not on.
Yeah, again, I mean, Ben Wallace, who I like and trust enormously, made the point 2 days ago that the injunction was necessary to maintain security and to investigate the leak.
The initial injunction, yes, it was, but not the super injunction that then came later.
But Mike, I'm trying to be balanced here. What's interesting here is if a judge made the decision only 2 days ago to lift that super injunction, the reasons for doing it in the first place and then being upheld by successive defence secretaries and by successive governments, there must have been some legitimacy for the reason in the first place. So I think ultimately what happened was a bit of a scandal. I think that what we need to be doing basically is getting to the bottom of it. I welcome the transparency now, but it's only 2 days ago that the Labour government saw fit to lift the injunction, and only 2 days ago that a judge saw fit to remove the, to remove it. So I think we need to be quite clear in the reasons for it. I think the reasons were valid. I think there was a risk to security for these people. They had paid their debt to the UK in most cases. Their lives were in danger. And I think
but how many people are we talking about? I mean, you're a military guy, James. You tell me how many people are in terms of actual, assisting the British forces in Afghanistan. Is it hundreds? Is it 2,000? It's certainly not money more than that, is it?
Well, I think it's easy to work out. I mean, I think there was a deployment there of about 10,000 troops at any one time, but over a period of 15 years or so. So ultimately, that figure of 18,000 is probably about right in terms of those who are interpreters, those who
how can you have more interpreters than you got soldiers, though?
Well, interpreters and soldiers and cleaners and staff and security staff and drivers, the list goes on. So I think the 18,000 figure for those that applied for asylum is probably near enough. What we use, but doesn't mean to say that of those 18,000 they all come here. Checks have to happen. There has to be clear evidence, clear diligence, clear assurance done. I am hopeful that given the pressure on services in the UK and given the current political climate, that those checks were done by both governments. But again, just to make the point, I was a military man. I've served all over the world. I know what these people did for us, and we should be giving them a debt of gratitude. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we bring them and their families to the UK and give them a blank check. And I understand completely why people are cross about it, in the same way that it should be really, really cross with the illegal migration figures and the legal migration figures that are just too high over the last 30, 40 years.
And the numbers of Afghan men who are coming to this country and committing crimes, because we know that's a fact as well, and that's what you've got to put into the whole mix. James, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Colonel James Sunderland, former Conservative MP. Let's get a voice note from Glenn.
Morning, Mike. Glenn from Brighton here. How depressing is everything? I mean, you can't wake up any morning now without something pressing you now. I mean, everybody knows the country's been in free fall for the last 25, 30 years. But the last 2 years or so have been absolute hell. We've got a government who hates its country and hates the people in it. We've got a king who seems to be complicit in every bit of wokery that's going on. I mean, it's turning the people who love this country into hating it. I mean, why would they want to do that? And GB don't stand for Great Britain anymore, Mike. It stands for gullible bastards.
Yep. Glenn says what many people this morning are saying. They've just had enough. Absolutely sick to the back teeth of it. Let's stop saving the world, shall we? Let's stop helping everybody else and start helping each other. That might be a start. 7:39.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 7:41. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. One from Sean in Gloucester. Every bloody day I wake up absolutely cheesed off with the idiots in power. I've always worked hard and never claimed a penny, but the governments over the last couple of decades have exploited people like me to pay scroungers and freeloaders as well as lining their own pockets. A lot of people saying that. Sarah in Peterborough. Good morning, Mike. Great show. We are a small island. Why do we have to take on the world's problems? I'm sick of this country. Our government hates us. This is a desperate state of affairs. Every day I think it can't get worse, and it does. Absolutely ridiculous, incredible. We'll be talking more about all of that, of course, as we go through the show coming up to 10 o'clock. Sarah Poachin coming up in a little while as well. Right now, though, let's talk about Prevent, because a report has come out, a much expected report by Lord David Anderson. It's a review of Prevent in the wake of the killing of MP David Amess and also the murders in Southport by a man whose name I'm not going to mention because I'd rather not give him the publicity, I'm afraid. We're going to speak to Rad Saiger, advisor and spokesperson for the family of Sir David Amess, who was MP, of course, for Southend, stabbed to death by a man who had been described by Prevent as somebody who was a very, very interesting and a decent person. Just ridiculous. Basically, the Southport monster was referred to Prevent 3 times, but nothing was really done, and he was free to murder those 3 little girls. Robin Simcox told MPs, counter-extremism czar, that there would need to be a pretty fundamental shift in what Prevent is, saying Prevent better brace itself for an awful lot of referrals. There seems to be, Rad, a very good morning to you, there seems to be a kind of complicated explanation that everybody's trying to discern between somebody who might be a terrorist and somebody who might be just very, very violent.
Mike, good morning. I absolutely agree with you, and I think for most of us in the public, when you hear the term prevent, I mean, prevent means prevent, and it doesn't mean slip through the nets.
No.
And there's real human suffering behind these stories, Michael. Let's not forget that. And the state has failed in Southport. It failed in Southend. But the trouble is, Mike, that Sir David's family were told after he died that they had learned the lessons from his tragedy, and clearly they hadn't, because then Southport happened, and David's family feel very upset and feel very strongly that had there been a public inquiry after his death, as there should have been, and still there should be, that Southport wouldn't have happened.
No, exactly right. And I mean, I spoke to Lord Carlisle, who was a former kind of independent reviewer of Prevent, and I'm just going to play a little clip. This was a few months ago now, and I think it would sort of explain why there's such a problem in this area. What exactly has What exactly has been good that Prevent has done?
Prevent has done what it says in on the tin.
Well, it hasn't prevented anything, has it? It hasn't prevented young children being killed. No, it hasn't prevented young children from being killed. It hasn't prevented the London Bridge attacker from killing people when he came to Fisherman's Hall. It has failed multiple times to protect the British public. So therefore, the word prevent is not even a suitable moniker for the organisation.
Can I now answer your question?
Please do.
Or whichever question you want me to answer.
Well, you tell me what successes Prevent has provided us with.
I was about to, but you interrupted me during my
well, I'm sorry, you're obviously not used to robust conversations, are you? Well, yeah, because I'm not going to be spoken down to like some kind of child, okay? I don't know who you think you are. Just because you're a lord does not give you the ability to lord it over the rest of the public, okay? So talk to me as an equal, or else you can get lost, frankly.
I thought you were a journalist.
No, I am a journalist. Yes, I am.
I'm going to answer your question if you'll shut up for a minute.
Go ahead.
Right. Prevent has done a great deal of good. Prevent has prevented large numbers of people from becoming terrorists, but it does not succeed in every case, and you could not expect it to succeed in every case.
And so that was the kind of attitude, I think, that pervades in these organisations, Brad. And you find it very hard to break through this kind of ridiculous kind of facade that they have. They're very pompous, They think they know better than everybody else, and anyone who criticises them is some kind of, lowlife.
Mike, that was a terrific challenge to Lord Carlisle. Thank you for that. And we must always look at this through the prism of the victims. Yeah. And we don't talk about victims, but Mike, you and I like to do that. And how can you say to Sir David's family, oh, well, it's just one of those things, move along, which is effectively the sort of language that Lord Carlisle was using there is exactly what David's family have heard, well, in the 4 years since he died. And look, if this had happened to you or I, Mike, we would want to know why these failures were allowed to happen. It's no good just saying, well, prevent does a lot of good. It's failed. By my calculation, Mike, there are about 2 prevent-related atrocities a year. Yeah. Now, in my book, that's too many, and we have to do better for these victims. And the only way we're going to do that, Mike, is through a public inquiry. Now, Southport have had a inquiry started, thank goodness. But the 2 cases are almost identical, and you can't have one in Southport without having one in Sir David's case.
No, absolutely right. Listen, we're going to keep up the pressure, and we'll try and help you as much as we can to make that happen. And please give my best to the family as well. Thank you very much indeed. We haven't got a lot of time this morning. Rad Saiger, advisor and spokesperson for the family of Sir David Amess, who want a public inquiry and should get a public inquiry because, quite frankly, prevent is not worth the paper that the word is written on, because it doesn't prevent anything. It's quite simple. It's quite straightforward. Coming up, we're going to be speaking to Susan Smith, Director for Women for Scotland. We're going to be finding out exactly what has been going on up there. There's been a very big case, a controversial case of a nurse who was going through a disciplinary procedure because there was a trans doctor using a changing room that she didn't want to use because of that. We'll find out what that was all about. We've got so many messages coming in. Voice note, I think, from Steve now.
Morning, Mike. Great show. Steve here. This whole email leaked list thing, it stinks. I think it's more corruption, to be honest. I mean, who did he email it to? I'm pretty sure he didn't email it to Mr. Taliban, did he? Apparently he emailed it to someone outside of the MOD. So how did the Taliban get it?
Yeah, well, I mean, supposedly the Taliban knew a lot about these names anyway, already. Dennis in Manchester says, morning, Mike, just wondering if those Afghans who are suing the government win lots of compensation. Will they be expected to pay the ongoing costs for what we've given them for free, or will they still be entitled to benefits? Well, it's a very good question. People want to know. This from Terry in Slough. This useless, incompetent bunch of politicians, both Labour and Tories, have made this country a laughingstock. It seems they care more about the welfare of asylum seekers and illegal immigrants than they do about the British people. As the Donald said, they don't know what the beep they're doing. They certainly don't. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is...
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:52. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through till 10. Sean from Bridlington makes a good point. The Afghan scandal is great cover for Labour. No coverage about Lammy giving £94 million to a terrorist government in Syria, which is now being bombed by Israel. Yeah, well, there is that. There's also the 70 million quid that Lammy handed out to Singapore the other day, which nobody's really talked about very much either. I saw a line from somewhere yesterday saying they might be spending it actually on the military. It's meant to be for some kind of green issue. It's supposed to be for climate change. They're going to spend it on the military in Singapore. Brilliant. Just before we speak to Susan Smith up in Scotland, let's have a look at Keir Starmer yesterday in the House of Commons talking Prime Minister's questions about how he's delivering for working people.
We're happily going to go to our constituents. We're going to tell them we promised 2 million extra NHS appointments and we delivered 4 million extra appointments. Mr Speaker, I've got to upgrade that. It's now 4.5 million extra appointments. So we're going to tell our constituents that. Then we're going to tell them about the free school meals we're rolling about, the free breakfast clubs, the free childcare and school uniform costs. We'll tell them about that. And then when we've done that, we'll move on to affordable houses and tell them about the £39 billion we're investing. When we finish that, we'll tell them about the rail and road upgrades across the country, the £120 billion investment, and of course the 3 trade deals. And Mr Speaker, we're only just getting started.
I mean, literally a tissue of lies, papering over the disgrace of the Afghanistan scandal, which wasn't really discussed at all. And let me give you some proper statistics, actually. The rate of unemployment in the UK increased to 4.7% from 4.6% in the 3 months to May. These are figures out this morning. And UK average regular earnings growth has decreased to 5% from 5.2% in June. And breaking news as well, 178,000 fewer people on the payroll now, 5 straight months of job losses. Hiring is now more expensive thanks to national insurance hikes. I'm afraid Keir Starmer isn't working. And the economy isn't working. And for him to continue to bang on about how business confidence is at an all-time high, it isn't. About 4.5 million appointments being made on the NHS, which is still not making any difference to the waiting list. The fact that Rachel Reeves saw inflation rise to 3.6% yesterday, which is a high from the last high of January 2024. And the whole situation is a complete car crash. The idea that Keir Starmer was trying to claim by giving free school meals and breakfast clubs to a few kids around the country that somehow that's some massive triumph is not. It's a complete disaster. And that's why in The Sun today I'm saying people are so fed up they just want another general election. It's as simple as that. Let's talk to Susan Smith, though, Director for Women of Scotland, because a massive story yesterday, actually. Sandy Peggy is a nurse up in Scotland, was accused of gross misconduct and misgendering her colleague because she didn't want to actually change in a changing room with a transgender doctor, has actually won her case. Susan, very good morning to you.
Morning.
So, common sense has prevailed at last. Tell us.
Well, she's not actually won. The case is ongoing. The tribunal is ongoing. But the NHS board, NHS 5, has cleared her of misconduct. So, although
sounds like a win to me.
It is. But obviously, it's interesting that there's no settlement as yet with the tribunal case, because a lot of the case in the tribunal rested on the doctor trying to claim that she had been bullying and misgendering and been aggressive, and had what we think had made up a safety concern around a patient, and said that she'd walked out of a resuscitation, and she's been cleared of all that. And this was really what was being argued in the tribunal, that she'd done this, and this was the reason for her suspension. And so that's all fallen. Right. But the tribunal's ongoing, and yesterday we heard from Isla Bumba, which sounds like it's a made-up name, but it isn't. Yeah. And she is the EDI lead, and she's a young woman in her 20s. She's paid a lot of money, over 50,000, and she was basically copying and pasting bad policies from other NHS boards that said anybody who say they are a woman, even if, you know, there's still a fully intact man, as this individual was, can go into the women's changing room.
Yeah, I mean, this Isla Bumba person seems very confused. Apparently she told the Employment Tribunal that the definition of biological sex was far more complex than whether someone had a male or female body. Surely that's the very definition of biological sex, isn't it?
Yeah, she also said she didn't know what biological sex she was and what she was made of biologically. She's got a degree in immunology, so one would hope that she has a bit of a clue about how biology works. But I think this is it's highly representative of the sort of nonsense that's fed into all these policies, and unfortunately they're rampant across all the boards in Scotland. And we thought after we won our Supreme Court case, all this would start to change, that people would have to scrap these policies, but they're still in place and people are still lying about the law. And
it does seem to be a particular problem inside the NHS. I mean, most private organisations have now kind of taken the law and used it to basically challenge what has gone before, and they've said, well, you know, that's not going to be the case anymore because this is now the law. But, you know, the NHS seems to be standing alone, not just in Scotland, but also in England and Wales too, where they're saying, well, we're not sure that it's right.
It's a bit of an issue across public bodies in Scotland, actually, and it comes from the top. It comes from the Scottish Government, because the Scottish Government are not taking responsibility and they are not updating their policies. We've got these policies still in schools, still in prisons, across the public sector, and the NHS are just following the lead of the Scottish Government. And they've said they accept the ruling, but we've yet to see any evidence that they do accept it in practice.
Yeah. So how much longer is this tribunal going to go on for?
Well, it was scheduled to go on for 11 days. Yeah. So all next week as well, and into the week after, if it takes that full period of time. It may conclude earlier. But there are a lot of witnesses to get through.
OK, well, we'll keep our eyes on it, but hopefully what happened yesterday is a good sign, and Sandy Peggy will, in fact, eventually have a complete victory over this complete and utter madness, absolute craziness. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call to get in touch, and we've got lots of you we're going to talk to over the next 2 hours. Sue in Droitwich says, this morning, Mike, how much more can the Brits be expected to suck up political errors and carry on paying? My mum is selling jewellery to pay for her council tax rise. I've had enough. It's time to opt out. And Helena says, Mike, I'm on a wait list for my NHS wait list. Is Starmer counting all waiting lists? Well, no, they're just making appointments and not keeping them. It's easy to make 4.5 million appointments. Just make another appointment. I'll make an appointment with you right now. I'll see you after the news at 8 o'clock. That's an appointment that you know we're going to keep. Sarah Pochin's going to be here, and we're going to talk to Peter Hitchens later on as well. This is Morning Glory. We'll see you after the news.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, starting message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space on a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock when Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here. A couple of pieces of breaking news for you. The rate of UK unemployment increased to 4.7% from 4.6% in the 3 months to May, and UK average regular earnings growth has decreased to 5% from 5.2%. Also, 178,000 fewer payroll jobs, which is the 5th month in a row. Payroll jobs have dropped, I'm afraid. So we are not looking good on the economy front. Another piece of breaking news, Jaguar Land Rover, Keir Starmer's favourite car company, has said it's going to axe up to 500 management jobs in the UK through a voluntary redundancy programme. This is after sales plummeted 97.5% over its woke pink rebrand. They registered just 49 vehicles in Europe in April, compared with 1,961 vehicles in the same month last year. So it's gone really well since they've gone woke. Do you remember that ridiculous advert? Absolutely mad. We had them on Plank of the Week just the other week. They're not going to make it this week though, because it's a bit late. They've announced it's too late to make it. Never mind. So 500 management jobs in the UK. What they should do is go back to what they used to do, make decent cars and stop trying to be clever. It's as simple as that. 0344 499 1000. For those of you just joining, this morning is a massive, massive blow to the health and wealth of this country. We've brought in so far 18,500 Afghans that we think, as far as we know, were in a league with us when we were at war with the Taliban in Afghanistan some years ago. We know the defence chiefs made a massive blunder. An email was sent out by mistake which put all these people's names at risk. And of course now it turns out that possibly 100,000 people are saying they're going to be put at risk and they're going to come here to get away from Taliban death squads. Well, if the Taliban are going to kill them, why haven't they killed them already? Would be my suggestion. The super injunction that was imposed was only lifted on Tuesday. It now turns out that some of the people who have come here are now being chased around by ambulance-chasing lawyers, and they're going to charge us, they're going to sue us for over £1 billion in compensation because they think we didn't rescue them quickly enough. I mean, for heaven's sake, are we just the kicking boys of the rest of the world? 0344 499 1000. Sarah Poachin, Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby, joins me in a moment. It is literally getting to the point where people are so fed up, they're just going to give up working because they're throwing their hands up in the air this morning saying, what more can I do? I work every single morning. My wife does 2 jobs. We pay our taxes. We get nothing from the government. All we get is more demands from the electricity company, from the phone company, from, the car company, from the mortgage company. All we get is bills to pay. And what we don't get is any help. And when we get people coming into this country being given everything for free, it's starting to cheese people off in quite a major way. It's 5 minutes past 8. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Let's just listen to what some of you have been saying this morning.
Up at 2:30 again this morning, and after all this drama yesterday, this morning, I really don't know why I bothered.
I'm so depressed as well. When you think things can't get any worse, it does.
Has this country gone completely bonkers? How is this country going to possibly recover from this? I genuinely can't see it. It's gone too far.
It has indeed. Let's talk to Sarah Poachin. Sarah, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for inviting me on this morning.
Not at all. People are really cheesed off this morning. You know, I've got a piece of the Sun today saying that yesterday I was getting the message that people were fed up. They'd had enough. They certainly think that the Tories are finished after this super injunction scandal and this Afghan scandal. It now turns out this morning that not only are Labour complicit in it as well, but now we've got the people that we've rescued are going to sue the government and sue us effectively for not rescuing them quickly enough. I mean, the world's gone mad, hasn't it?
It's extraordinary, Mike. This is yet another betrayal of the British people, but by the Tory government we're talking about now.
Yeah.
But of course, the Labour government also wanted to keep this under wraps until recess started. Parliament breaks for recess for 6 weeks on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But this was actually blown out of the water by a judge, as we know, yesterday. But the point is, it's another example of where the British people are having the wool pulled over their eyes, or at least the government's trying to. This was happening, a covert operation. We've taken, as you said, 18,000 Afghans. Now, I know, because I did have something to do with some Afghan interpreter refugees, I know that there is between 1,000 and 1,500 interpreters, Afghan special forces that worked and that fought alongside our soldiers. Those Afghans, particularly those ones I've mentioned, were brave and they deserve to be given refuge in our country. The 18,000 that we know about, and it's going to be an awful lot more by the sound of it, who are these people? These are people that have applied for British visas, that have seen an opportunity here to get into our country. And I'm not saying that there aren't some people in that group that did help our soldiers, but the fact is we should be considering, you know, as I say, 1,500 max of these interpreters, these special forces.
Yeah, exactly right. Because, I mean, I remember during the course of the last few years, we all had plenty of conversations about the Afghan resettlement scheme because it wasn't a secret, which is why I think most people find this super injunction to be so insidious, because the only reason the super injunction was there was not to safeguard the lives of Afghan people. It was to cover the blushes of the Conservative government who had made such a terrible blunder because they didn't have to do what they did.
No, they didn't. And this is the whole point. And the papers are full of Suella Braverman saying it wasn't her and Robert Jenrick saying it wasn't him. And, you know, Ben Wallace, did he keep a lid on all of this? Do you know what? The British people don't care.
Right.
The fact is, it's another example of a government that has absolutely betrayed the British people. And the absolute, I mean, the unbelievable situation that we're now facing yet again, this whole industry of left-wing human rights lawyers that are going to go to town on this, themselves earning a fortune, as we know, and now go for compensation on behalf of these Afghans that have come in, taken our houses, taken our benefits, taken our public services away from local people. I know that happens with illegal immigrants in my constituency of Runcorn and Helsby. And here we are, we've got a whole nother wave of people that have come in, you know, almost under the cover of darkness. I think literally in some cases under the cover of darkness, and dispersed into our communities, Mike. They've been housed in our MOD accommodation, they've been housed in these asylum hotels, and then they get dispersed into the community and then they're lost.
Yeah. Over the last 48 hours, and the last two shows since Tuesday, I've had call after call and message after message from people saying that they've witnessed it, they've seen it happening, you know, because I've been talking about this for about the best part of the last 2 or 3 years, where people have been telling me, you know, we've noticed a lot more people on the streets, we've noticed a lot more people in our communities who have come from somewhere else. They didn't know they were necessarily Afghan, but they knew that they were certainly not from this country, and they were certainly not from Europe. And it's clear that many of them have been given houses, and the issue is, if you're given a free house and you've got your children living there and your wife living there, then surely to God you should not be allowed to then sue the government for compensation unless you're willing to have to pay for the house.
And do you know what? We can see that I heard a story that they're suing because we didn't get them out quick enough. I also heard a story that they're suing about the fact that the leak happened in the beginning.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, these people are being given everything ahead of our own population, our own British citizens, that those that need help, getting pushed out of accommodation in favour of these people coming in. But they now have the audacity to sue us. But this is driven by the European Convention of Human Rights. And as you know, our position is very clear on this. From the day one that we get into power, we will be on a mission to remove this country from the ECHR and, of course, change the Human Rights Act in itself, because this is what this industry of left-wing lawyers are feeding off. And this government, along with the last government, is letting this happen at a cost of, like you say, I mean, they're talking about £1 billion to the taxpayer. We don't know what the cost is, Mike. And again, the British people are fed up of hearing about £1 billion or £7 billion, or, you know, it just feels like these figures are bandied around. Nobody really knows what they're talking about, but the British people are feeling it in their pockets, they're feeling it in their daily lives, they're feeling in the fact that we don't have free speech anymore, they're feeling it in what they're seeing on the streets, in every aspect. And if I can just quickly mention, Mike, as well, a subject that I talk a lot about, this particular culture of the Afghan males coming in are often very, very misogynistic and treat Western women incredibly badly. And the increase in crime, there's evidence, sexual crime against women is much higher percentage out of this group of men. So this is not only a betrayal of the British people in their pocket, in their culture, on their streets, it's also a betrayal of the safety of British women.
Yeah, absolutely right. And when it comes to Labour government, right, in addition to not lifting the injunction when they should have lifted it, which would have been sometime last year when they discovered it, because I'm told Keir Starmer didn't know about it. John Healey apparently knew about it, but somehow he didn't tell Keir Starmer until after he became Prime Minister. But a lot of people are also asking the question that, you know, throughout this last year of government by Labour, they've been so sanctimonious about, you know, stopping immigration and getting control of the borders and smashing the gangs and all of that, all the while knowing that there was this secret plan going on to flood the country with Afghan families, right? And so, one, that's completely disingenuous, but also, two, when they sort of put their budgets together and they got the OBR's approval of this, that and the other, surely they must have been committing some kind of fiscal offence by not revealing that there's this £8 billion black hole coming because of the Afghan scandal.
Exactly. I mean, there's a super injunction to cover up what happened. Surely there's not a super injunction to cover up the actual financial effect. And of course, this is the Labour government who, as you say, knew all about this. The Labour government who took away the winter fuel allowance, which effectively lost them, one of the policies that lost them the Runcorn and Helsby by-election, which is why we're talking here today. But they took that money away from our pensioners. They're taking disability. Well, what a complete mess that is, the whole welfare bill. But they are planning to take disability benefits away from those that need it there. And yet we can always find, can't we, Mike, £7 billion or whatever it might be for for immigrants. Let's just put it that way. And the British people have absolutely had enough. Every time I get into a taxi in the morning, every time people stop me on the street, they say to me, please don't stop saying what you're saying. Please stand up for us, because you are our last hope to save this country.
I hear that every single day as well, because people are sick to death of it. That's why in The Sun today I've written this piece where people yesterday were saying, why don't we just have an election? Because both of those parties are completely busted flushes. You know, nobody believes a word they say. Keir Starmer yesterday getting up in Pan. I thought it was disgraceful, by the way, that it wasn't even, the whole Afghan story wasn't even discussed. Keir Starmer makes a little statement saying, oh yes, we'll be looking into it, there'll be an inquiry, and I welcome that. And then next thing you move on, Kemi Badenoch stands up, I'm going, great, now she's going to ask him a question. She mentioned she gets stuck on the economy. I couldn't believe it.
Well, I couldn't believe it. I was obviously sat there. And you know what, I'm just gagging to get to that dispatch box, because, oh my goodness, would Keir Starmer be getting both barrels from me. Actually, I won't surprise you at all. But to sit there and have to listen to such a weak opposition to listen to how Kemi approaches PMQs when there is so much to go at, so much to talk about. But you know why? Because they were in this as well. They're as much up to their necks in this scandal as the Labour Party. They're both absolutely complicit in this. And did you realise that Ben Wallace, who I always thought was a very good Defence Secretary, but suddenly all this comes out. He resigned. He left the day before this super injunction was granted.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it all this comes out. Look, I'm not saying that being in government is easy. Clearly, it's not. But surely you should live by a code of honour and always putting the British people first and the protection and the defence of the British people first. Surely if a government starts from that footing, everything else should fall naturally in favour of the British people. But the last government, this government, they just seem to have a real issue with putting British people first.
Right. And the idea that any government, and whether it was the Tories who initiated it and then the Labour Party who continued it, to put a super injunction on anything which is public policy, which is publicly, expenditure is being used for, apart from anything else. I mean, we had Jacob Rees-Mogg on yesterday who said, it's against parliamentary democracy and in fact against parliamentary law to spend that kind of money, 7 or 8 billion quid, without first putting it before Parliament. So Grant Shapps, who we haven't heard from, I don't know what he's doing these days, selling second-hand cars probably, nobody's heard from this guy. We need to know why he thought it was a great idea to keep this incredibly, desperately bad scandal from the public.
Exactly. And you feel like, how are they going to hide £7 billion? Yeah. And the way, we hear about, don't we, every time Labour gets up in Parliament, we inherited this £22 billion black hole from the Tories. Well, start telling us what's in there. Right. Suddenly we find, is that £7 billion of that to do with this scheme? What else has been hidden, Mike? This is the frightening thing. Who else knew? Who else knows what? And of course, Reform, as you know, have asked for a judge-led public inquiry to get to the truth. But of course, as we know, it's another inquiry, and these inquiries sometimes get to the bottom of these scandals. But what happens? Yeah. We still haven't sorted out the blood scandal. We still haven't paid the post office victims. Right. So the grooming gangs, it's taken Keir Starmer the U-turn on a public inquiry. So there's all these massive issues that the British people really want answers about and want someone to deliver on compensation, proper compensation to the post office victims. And actually, by the way, you've just got me on something there, because I bet you those post office victims are still waiting for their compensation long after these Afghans have been paid their compensation because we didn't get them out quick enough.
Yeah, exactly right. And meanwhile, old Keir Starmer is busy meeting with the head of Czechia, as he calls it, and today he's got the German Chancellor coming in to do some ridiculous deal about stopping the dinghies from being put in warehouses in Germany. I mean, he's literally fiddling while Britain's burning.
Oh my goodness, I read that and I thought, OK, so they're not going to store them in a warehouse in Germany. Well, they'll just find somewhere else. Yeah. This is organised crime. It's like cutting the head off that, that mythical monster and another one pops up. Yeah, there you go. So, OK, oh dear, they have to move their boats out of that particular warehouse in Germany and they'll just go and put them over the border or they'll find somewhere else. This is organised crime. We are talking, ruthless individuals that are making millions out of this business of these dinghies and all the rest of it. Doesn't matter whether it's people that are making the dinghies or making the life jackets or actually doing the crossings or whatever it is. This is an industry that run by ruthless gangs. So yes, moving boats from one warehouse to the next, I really don't think is going to have any impact at all whatsoever, Mike, on his one in, one out policy, which of course, let's all remember, is a pilot anyway. Yeah. I've never heard such nonsense. I've been very vocal on this. It's 800 in and none out. Whereas if you get reform in, if the British people get reform in, and I'll tell you what they will, Mike, because they've had enough, then they all go back. Nobody stays here and nobody ever has the right to apply for British citizenship again. Yeah, quite right. Long may it happen. Sarah, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Sarah Poachin there, a former UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby. Terry says, I packed work in 6 months ago at 55. I worked since I was 15, 6-day weeks, weekends. I had one sick day in 12 years. I now take £1,000 a month out of my private pension and I'm not paying a penny in tax to this lot. I've had enough. Quite right too. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
Well, it's now quite obvious that most politicians and also political commentators, yourself accepted, Mike, don't actually see just how serious this Afghan scandal is and just how serious the totally dead lack of trust between voters and leaders now is. They're saying this scandal risks damaging trust between voters and politicians. Trust between voters and politicians was dead and buried years ago. Started with all the expenses scandals and has gone on and on and on with lack of action on immigration and everything else, to the point that this now is basically just putting a 10-foot, 50-ton concrete patio right over the grave of trust that once lived between voters and leaders. That's all finished now. They're finished.
Mark, what a great message that is. Fantastic. You're absolutely right. People just don't trust politicians anymore. They certainly don't trust the Tories and they don't trust Labour. Is there any hope, if Reform get in, that they'll trust them? Coming up, Colin Robertson is going to talk to us, head of features at The Sun. We've got quite an interesting page 10 today to talk about, and we'll be telling you all about it. Coming next.
We have a moral obligation to ensure that those who worked with British forces were protected. We have a moral obligation to ensure that as many of them as possible are brought to safety. This is a fraught and dangerous enterprise in which individual British soldiers put themselves at risk in order to help people come to this country. So in that respect, well, of course there are regrettable elements. The decisions taken both by the last government and this government are right.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:25. I'm Mike Graham. This from Kevin in Stafford. If your call for a general election is met, what then? If, as I suspect, Reform wins, but without a strong majority, how do they govern? Not with the current civil service in place. The woke bunch will just resist any new policy they don't like. The country goes even further down the gurgler, says Kevin in Stafford. Well, I don't know the answer to that, but Colin Robertson's here, head of features at The Sun. Colin, very good morning to you.
Morning.
You were kind enough to run a piece of mine in the paper today.
Very good piece.
On page 10. Basically, really as a reaction to what people had said to me yesterday on the show, because people yesterday were so annoyed about this Afghan crisis, this Afghan blunder and cover-up and super injunction and all of that, that they were starting to say to me, isn't it time we had an election? You know, and now, because of your page 1, the £1 billion compensation scheme, they're even more angry.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I heard your monologue yesterday,
Yeah.
and I thought to myself, that is going to
strike a chord with people. People are furious at the moment because every day we're waking up to a bit. How many billions are we going to be paying for something that is completely out of our hands,
for which we get no benefit?
That's
really.
not in our interest.
No.
That's the thing. I mean, actually, when this story broke, you remember the story that was happening at the same time. Was the over 1 million migrants and foreign nationals claiming benefits,
claiming universal credit,
and that got bumped to the side because there's an even bigger bill coming our way.
It was extraordinary because that was the big story we thought was going to be the lead story for the whole week. In fact, and it's sort of been pushed slightly back to the side because this scandal is so huge. But what I find amazing is, apart from you guys and us, quite a lot of the other media are not really treating it as if it's the biggest story of the year, which it obviously is.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? A lot of the time, you're on this show, and us at the Sun as well. We're hearing from real people all the time. People who are affected by this stuff. If you live in a sort of a high castle, then you look down this and say, "Oh, isn't it dreadful?" But actually, if you're living and breathing it, you've had people on, and you say in your column, you've got somebody who's bought £500,000 home, and they've saved up all their money, and then here we are, great, we've bought this £500,000 home, we're moving in, and then there's a family of, they think it's Afghans who've moved in around the corner into a similar home that they're getting for free, and then getting everything else for free, and it makes you incredibly angry, incredibly frustrated, because you think to yourself, well, it happens all the time. I'm like, I need to get my son some physiotherapy. But I think to myself, well, that's a waste of time. I'm going to have to dig into the savings and take him private. Why? Because there's this gigantic queue for absolutely everything. Every benefit going, there's a massive queue, huge waiting lists, and people are getting sick and tired of that. And then more and more people come into the country. And look, of course, we're a welcoming nation. We welcome. We appreciate.
Look where it's got us, though.
Exactly. This is the problem: is that we will welcome people in, but people's patience is being tested on a daily basis by lots of people coming in, and the government is sort of not helping normal people, but it seems to be prioritising the other people that are coming in, and that's where the frustration lies. We are, lots of people sort of say, "Oh, there's, you hate migrants, it's racism, and you're anti-refugee." No, that's not true.
No,
we are a compassionate country, and as I say, lots of the people involved in this Afghan business helped us. And so we owe them. We owe them.
Right. But the problem with that is the number, isn't it? Because I keep talking to people who say, yes, there were 12,000 troops over a period of 10 years or something in Afghanistan, right? But over that, how do you get from that to saying, oh, there's 18,500 people that have to then come into Britain? Because there couldn't be that many people helping us. That's the worry, that an awful lot of these people actually weren't helping us at all.
Well, I think that's the issue, isn't it? You've got to do the due diligence on that. But while the due diligence was supposed to be being done on that, somebody went bonk and actually sent that email out and thought, oh, Christ, that database has gone out. It's now out to the four winds. It's some Afghan people got it, it's passed on to and then it ends up on Facebook. So by then, you're trying to get the genie back into the bottle. Where you could have done some proper due diligence on that and said, well, actually, there's a few thousand here. They're most at risk. They're the ones who really did help us, and a lot of them are coming in anyway under the resettlement scheme. But I think we're okay with them. And as it's been shown, the government has admitted actually that there was probably not, they weren't as at risk as we might have thought they were.
No, exactly, because they're still talking about bringing some in who have been living presumably in Afghanistan for quite some years, and nobody's killed them. I mean, I don't want to be glib about it, but the fact is that, if they were in that much danger, surely they wouldn't be still where they are. And the other problem that people have got is, and it's a huge freedom of the press issue, is this super injunction, because I think people have found the most galling news about this whole story is that the Tories tried to make it so that we'd never find out about it.
Yeah, exactly. And what's been going on with this? I mean, super injunctions have become a sort of a phenomenon. I remember writing about them sort of 15 years ago when they sort of. I mean, at
Ryan Giggs and all that.
Ryan Giggs. At one point, we thought, how many of these things are out there? I appeared in the paper as super injunction man, and I had this. I was holding up this phone and said, "Do you know about a super injunction? Call me and find out." And the phone did ring. They weren't all super injunctions, but you didn't think that the government would start using. This was the sort of like slippery customers. Big business was using them to hide all sorts of dodgy things they'd done. Dodgy celebs who'd been up to no good. I mean, I think Andrew Marr had one at one point. And then he basically put his hands up and said, what on earth was I playing at? But the idea that the government is using them, and the government, this is the first, as we understand, this is the first time that the government has used a super injunction. They're not ruling out using them again.
Well, I was going to say, hopefully it's the only one, but we don't know.
But if we did, we couldn't talk about it right now.
Exactly right. And I think it's the lack of trust. I mean, just before you came in, that final voice note that I played from one of our regulars, actually, from Mark, and he basically said, the whole trust has gone between the voters and the politicians now, because they've proven themselves to just be self-serving, to want us not to know the truth, and now we've got the evidence of it.
Yeah, and it's about the government saying, "Well, we don't think we can trust you with this information. We don't, we leave it to us in this sort of like we know best society." And people don't like that.
No.
And actually, if you get the information out there, look, if they'd said, look, I understand that actually when Ben Wallace this first came across his desk, he panicked and thought, "Oh my God, this is a big deal. Let's put an injunction on this.
Shut it down.
Let's just shut it down while we work out what the problem is."
Yeah.
But then they increased the problem by creating a super injunction, so on and so on and so forth. And we got a million miles away from the actual problem itself. If that had come out, and a few months later, we would have reported it, you'd have been speaking about it on this show, the public would have gone, "Good God, what a hell of a blunder this is.
Right.
This is ridiculous,"
Right.
blah, blah, blah. But we understand why people make mistakes.
And they would have said, yes, it's very important that we make sure that the people that helped Britain in that time get rescued and get brought here. I don't think anyone would have had a problem with that. But because of the way it's been done, and we now know, because even John Healey, I think, has admitted that of the 18,500, quite a lot of them shouldn't actually be here. No. They've been brought in sort of in a cache, and now you can't get rid of them. You can't suddenly go knocking on the door and go, "Well, this free house we've given you, would you mind if we just take it back now, because apparently you have to go back to Afghanistan." It's not going to happen, is it?
No, of course it's not going to happen. And this is the thing, I know people make decisions, and they've made the wrong decisions here, but lots of very senior people have made terrible decisions. Yeah. And that's what frustrates people. Yeah. They think, well, who is making a good decision?
Right.
There's no one making a good decision.
Right.
And if no one's making a good decision, let's get rid of them.
Exactly.
And to your point, let's have a general election.
Yeah.
Let's get somebody else in. Let's give someone else a go.
And also, it was about, I don't know what sort of reaction you've had from it today, but in terms of what I wanted to say was that people want to get their country back. You hear that quite a lot. They talk about fairness. They talk about, working hard and not getting anything for it, just being punished by the government, while other people, and plenty of homegrown scroungers as well, who are on benefits, who just don't do anything at all for the economy, and we're sort of subsidising all of it. And people just want to take the control back, I think, of the government, because they feel as if it's just running out of control, telling them lies every day, and just making fun of them.
Absolutely,
really.
And I think people are incredibly frustrated. As I say, you wake up every day to say, what am I going to have to pay more for today? Yeah. And what service is going to be buckling under the strain that I can't use?
Yeah.
So you sort of think, if I'm ill, forget it.
Right.
Get in the queue. Yes, unless you're at death's door, you're probably not going to be seen.
Right.
And then your council tax is going up, and they won't fix the roads. They won't collect the bins if you live in Birmingham.
No.
So all these problems keep coming. They're piling on top of each other, and the people there's a sort of howl of rage there.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
You voted in Labour to fix these, and we'll fix this as a matter of urgency. You remember the speech, Keir Starmer, outside Number 10. You thought, OK, take a deep breath. We've got someone sensible in charge now, because the Tories.
Well, he was supposed to be the grown-up, wasn't he?
Exactly, and so right, we're going to come in, we're going to sort out all the mess, and that's effectively what he said.
Yeah.
And it's just made it worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's inevitable. And the economy this morning, we're talking about unemployment's increased, regular earnings growth has decreased, it's gone down, 178,000 people, fewer are now on the payroll. It's all the indicators are making it worse to live in this country than it was when Labour got in. And that wasn't meant to be the plan.
No, and that is incredibly frustrating. And this is a thing that I often rail against, is this idea of doing down Britain.
Yeah.
I hate to do down Britain.
Right.
I think Britain is brilliant. I think Brits are amazing. It's a great country. Love this country.
Yeah.
Love the people in this country. But my God, they're being dealt a really poor hand. And that's the frustration, is that we are a great nation. We're the funniest nation. We're the most talented nation on earth.
Right.
But we're being let down by the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
And we just don't know where to turn.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. It's frustration. People just feel terrible frustration. And this, as I say, this is the final straw, that these people that we have rescued, whether they deserved it or not, are now going to sue us because they want a couple of 100,000 each.
Exactly.
Because we didn't.
You've got enterprising lawyers at Barings who have come out saying, yes, we're thinking we're going to get 5-figure sums for these people.
Yeah. And
you think, well, I mean, you can't blame them, because they can say, well, I can get some money out of this, so I'll go for it.
Right.
But look at it's incredibly frustrating.
It's absolutely
and as you
hopeless.
say, it just adds more misery on top of more misery, and it tests our compassion. And that's what's always terrible about these things. It tests our compassion.
Yeah.
As I say, we are a welcoming nation. We're quite happy to welcome people in who have helped us, and we're quite happy to welcome in,
but we're now welcoming just
refugees.
pretty much anybody, and they're quite often not helping us. If anything, they're hindering us, and that is the problem. Let's have a look at what the Sun Letters page is saying about all this. And funnily enough, Colin, it's all about Afghanistan. And Emma in Devon says, just when you think things can't get any worse, we learn we've been lied to by successive governments over the Afghan debacle. Thousands of refugees secretly relocated to our shores after a Ministry of Defence data breach put their lives in danger. Words fail me. Why don't we invite the world to come and stay here, and they can use our benefit system, housing and NHS? The rest of us will have to move out, of course, unless we have Nigel Farage as Prime Minister. We are doomed. An awful lot of people say that. Stephen in Northumberland says, evacuating thousands of Afghans to Britain without the public or even Parliament's knowledge is inexcusable. While it was morally right to protect Afghans who had worked with British forces, to do so in secrecy was wrong. It denied the public its right to know about this hugely expensive operation. And, you know, you're right to say that, you know, the Sun is leading with this stuff, as we are, but an awful lot of other, you know, outlets, shall we say, seem to be less concerned about it. You know, they've sort of moved on to the next story, because the media can be guilty of that, particularly television media, you know, and they're not really talking about it. They're just kind of going, oh, well, that was just another government blunder.
I'm afraid that some media organisations are adrift from what's actually going on in the country. You know, you're getting regular feedback on Talk. I listen to Talk all the time, and the phones are ringing, and the people are ringing, and they're articulate people, and they know what's going on. They read up on these things. You know, people are engaged in this. You know, it's not just a howl of rage on one particular thing. No. You know, they're incredibly knowledgeable of what's going on, and we have to. You know, it's our duty to look after them,
of course,
and represent them,
absolutely,
and sort of say give them a bigger voice.
Absolutely right.
To the politicians who are making their lives a misery.
And let's do that right now. Robert says this about Afghan leak.
Morning, Mike. Great show. Robert in Nottingham. When we commissioned these Afghans to be interpreters, or when the Ministry of Defence did that, didn't anybody think that they might be vulnerable people? Steps should have been taken proactively then to have a strategy to deal with them should they need to leave Afghanistan for their safety. Just a thought. Have a great day.
Very good thought. Sounds like Vince Cable, doesn't he?
We've all got hay fever.
Yeah, exactly. Just to give you a quick flavour of what we're hearing today, have a listen to this.
Up at 2:30 again this morning, and after all this drama yesterday, this morning, I really don't know why I bothered.
I'm so depressed as well. You know, when you think things can't get any worse, you know, it does.
Has this country gone completely bonkers? How is this country going to possibly recover from this? I genuinely can't see it. It's gone too far.
Yeah, and that's the mood of the nation right now. So, you know, we'll continue to represent it. We'll continue to give you the information that we can. Colin Robertson from The Sun, thank you very much indeed. Anything you want to tell us about tomorrow? Is it too early to say?
A bit early to say tomorrow, but this story will keep on running, and you know, everything that we can now find out about it. Now we're allowed to write about it. Yes. Now we're allowed to talk about it. You'll be hearing everything that we possibly can get on it. Do not worry.
Great stuff, and a great feature as well in The Sun today about the real cost of the BBC stars, which wasn't on the list, right? These are the people who are actually making millions and millions of pounds out of us. But there we are. It's another story. Lucky old them. It's 8:39. More after this.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Can we issue an all-points bulletin, by the way? Anybody seen Grant Shapps? I'm quite interested in talking to him. We've reached out to him, as you say in the business here. He hasn't responded, but nobody seems to know where he is. Nobody seems to know what he's doing. This is the guy who actually started this madness by applying for a super injunction and getting a super injunction so that we would never find out how useless the last Tory government was when they, unfortunately, were in charge of the Ministry of Defence. When an Oppo from the Ministry of Defence, a Royal Marine, we believe, sent out an email which has now cost us upwards of 8 to possibly 9, maybe even 10 billion pounds, and nothing's been done about it. It seems absolutely and utterly incredible, incredible that Grant Shapps has not seen fit to put his head above the parapet and actually engage with people and say, this is why we did what we did. Steve in Wales says this, an emergency SOS for the following person, Sir Walter Mitty, a.k.a. Sir Grant Shapps. He's gone missing in action. Well, it would be nice to find him. Anne Widdicombe's with us, though, Reform's immigration spokesperson, former Home Office Minister, of course. Anne, very good morning to you.
Morning to you.
This is the most appalling story that I can even think of in my long career as a journalist. I cannot think of anything this awful, which has got such ramifications for the country and such terrible economic ramifications as well.
And, of course, it's simply the climax of an ongoing awful story. We always owed a duty towards those who'd actually assisted us in Afghanistan, but we spent years and years doing absolutely nothing until, I'm sure most people will recall, when Biden suddenly decided to pull the troops out. We had those scenes at Kabul of total confusion as people were desperately trying to get out at the last minute. We'd had years to put an orderly assessment, vetting, and everything else in place, which we didn't do.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we then had this blunder. And I could understand if they'd gone for an injunction immediately in order to protect people from the Taliban.
Yeah.
But it appears from the timeline that it took them a year to go for it. And there didn't appear to be any natural end. And we've still got people to this day who justifiably could be here, who are still held up in Pakistan with a very uncertain future, because we've mishandled everything from the point of view of the Afghans who helped us, from the point of view of the British public, who now face a very, very hefty bill, and from the point of view of confidence in the government. I don't see how there can be any.
No, there isn't. And people say to me as well, at what point do we stop helping people? It's all very well to say, yes, we had a sort of contract with these people in Afghanistan who were going to help British forces in one way, shape or form. But, how many of them were told or knew that if they did do that, they could then come to Britain with their families and basically live for free for the rest of their lives?
Well, I'm not sure what they would have been told at the time that they were asked to help. But the fact is that a lot of them did put their lives at risk to help. And I don't believe the British public would resent giving that help.
Not at all. Not at all. But we don't know just...
Let me just finish that point.
Sorry.
The Daily Mail, for example, was running what was called the betrayal of the brave. They wanted us to get on and sort it out. I, in the Express, was writing about perfidious Albion. We all knew we had something there to be sorted out, and it wasn't darn well sorted out. This is just a series of incompetent measures that has gone on for, as I say, years and years, and the injunction is only the culmination of that.
But the reason that people are so cheesed off with this entire situation is the injunction, because not only, people will forgive a mistake, albeit one of the biggest mistakes of all time, costing billions and billions of pounds, people will forgive it. But what they won't forgive is a government trying to cover up their own incompetence and their own inability to solve the problem, because there's many ways they could have solved the problem, but to even think, as Grant Shapps obviously did, that it was a great idea to not allow the British people to ever find out about it, that's unforgivable.
Well, as I say, the questions around the injunction are, first of all, if they were worried about people being in danger from the Taliban, why didn't they go for an injunction as soon as the mistake occurred? Why wait such a long time? And then, of course, when they've had time to put processes in place, why not lift it at that point voluntarily without being forced to through the courts? It's a shambles of a situation on the part of both governments, both Tories and Labour.
Yes. No, I think there's no question about that, and that's why people's trust in both of those parties currently is now at an all-time low. People are ringing up today and just saying things to me like, I don't know why I'm bothering. I get up very early in the morning, my wife works 2 jobs, I pay my taxes, I don't ask for anything, I've never had a benefit in my life, and all that seems to happen around me is everybody coming into the country getting stuff for free.
Well, I mean, the appalling situation is not when people are deliberately brought in here because they've given service to our country. It is when day after day after day there are boats of illegal migrants who have no claim to be here at all, arriving in their hundreds day after day, something like 45,000, I think, since Keir Starmer took over, and absolutely nothing of any value at all is being done about that.
And that is a problem. I mean, today Keir Starmer's meeting the Chancellor of Germany, who says he's going to stop them piling up dinghies in warehouses in Germany. Well, that's not going to make any bleeding difference, is it?
Of course it's not. I mean, all this, what Keir Starmer has always been focused on is trying to stop the activities at source, what he calls smashing the gangs. Yeah. He appears completely oblivious of the fact that even if you do manage to take out one gang, and he doesn't have terribly much success, another one comes along and takes its place. And if you close down one warehouse, another one will come along and take its place. These people are paying a lot of money, and so they can't be that necessitous. They're paying a lot of money in order to try and get into a country which has no means at all of monitoring who is coming in and who is going out. Or rather, we have the means, but we don't do it. We don't have national identity cards. We don't practice routine detention. We have no idea where people are. And do you blame them for trying to come here? I mean, do you blame them?
No, not at all. It's our fault. I mean, Nigel Farage has said that to me last time he was in here, and the French have said it. It's our fault because we make it too nice for them when they get here, and that is the problem. And we've got to run. Sorry, we're a bit short of time today. Anne Widdecombe, Reform's immigration spokesperson and former Home Office Minister, agreeing with me that this thing, this Afghan scandal, is an absolute and utter shambles. Let's get a quick voice note from Craig.
Hi, Mike. Craig from Manchester. Just in our local area, they moved a load of Afghans into a suburb of South Manchester, and all the kids were put into the school, but also at the same time there was a load of kids from Hong Kong that were put into the school, and 2 members of my family are teaching assistants at the school, and she said the kids from Hong Kong fully support themselves, they're dropped off at school, they buy all the uniform themselves, they're so good at learning, yet the Afghans in the same class dragging everyone down, they can't speak English, not willing to learn English, all provided uniforms by the local council. Just a joke, mate. Absolute joke.
Yeah, ridiculous. Absolutely utterly ridiculous. And it's not sustainable at all. It's coming up to very nearly 10 minutes to 9. Kinsey Schofield is here. We'll talk to her next.
It's almost impossible, isn't it, to get fired from the civil service? You just get moved to another department, quite often promoted. It's exactly the same in the NHS. You know, you run a failing NHS hospital trust. It doesn't mean that you're then disqualified from running another one. You just get moved to a different role. I mean, in a sense, yes, it's an important question, but there are so many wider questions.
Right.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:52. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. I don't know if time goes, but I'm delighted to say we're joined by Kinsey Schofield, the Queen of the West Coast. Very good morning to you.
So good to be over here with you.
Lovely to see you.
Versus Zoom.
Yes, it's so nice, isn't it, to be doing things in person. But we didn't know when we said, why don't you come on and talk about what's going on in Montecito, that we were going to get a whole load of pictures of Harry on the front pages this morning, going back to the minefield in a tribute to his mother. Again, right? Not for the first time.
Right, this is a repeat, copy and paste.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that the first time he did it, there was something really interesting about it. But there just seems to be this series. We've been hit pretty back to back, basically. We find out that Harry is expected to invite the family to Invictus Games.
Right.
Then we find out about these royal reconciliation negotiations. And then these images of Harry. I think we're seeing a man desperate to rehabilitate his image after moving to the United States and becoming really this villain who has gone out of his way to terrorize a father with cancer and his brother, whose wife recently, we believe, recovered from cancer. He realizes that the only way that he can sustain any sort of popularity and have opportunities is if he changes the direction of his brand, which has looked so vengeful over the last few years.
It has. So he's trying to go back to this kind of, charity thing, Africa,
Mom.
and his mum.
Yes.
Who an awful lot of people, I was obviously old enough to remember when she did that, and I was working for newspapers when she did that, and it was an incredible piece of video. It was an incredible moment because Diana was that kind of person. But he isn't.
Right.
And this is not memorable, and it's really, it's kind of a bit cheesy, really.
And coming a couple of weeks, a week and a half after Meghan utilized his mother's birthday to launch her alcohol brand. A woman that died in a drunk driving car accident.
Right.
So,
which couldn't have been an accident, right? It couldn't have been a coincidence.
I don't believe so. I think that was very intentional. I think these two utilized Diana's memory to manipulate whoever is whoever can be manipulated about it. I think most of us look at it and go, find your own thing. Yeah. Find your own path.
Right.
And you've shown us who you are, and it's not Diana, this person that just oozed empathy and compassion. These two are not that.
Right. And they're really not. And no sign of her, of course, which presumably means that she stayed home when he decided to shoot off to Africa.
Well, he says that they're not safe there. Although I'd say at least he's consistent.
Well, it is a minefield,
At least he's consistent because he doesn't bring her over here because he
Right.
says she's not safe over
Well,
here
hang on,
either.
didn't they go to Nigeria a couple of years ago?
Oh, yes, they did.
And that was
never
okay,
forget.
wasn't it? That was safe
Colombia.
enough. And Colombia, the world's most dangerous country. That was okay.
Exactly.
But yeah, and also I noticed that he's got a slightly different, he's got the Angola flag as well, whereas she had the Red Cross, which is a very different image.
Right.
And you have to say in 1997 when she did that, that was quite a long time ago, they still have the minefield not cleared. And so you kind of go, just on the basis of what's going on there,
right?
The campaign to clear the minefield hasn't really worked.
Right, exactly. I mean, he would probably argue with us that that's why he's there, taking these photos. But I think that if you're watching the Sussex show, as a spectator, you just think, here's another PR opportunity for Prince Harry, and you don't feel like there is any sincerity to it whatsoever, especially when you look at the chaos surrounding Senebale and how that has...
that hasn't really been mentioned, has it?
No, we're still waiting to find out there is an investigation as to whether the head of Senabale was bullied, treated poorly because she is a black female.
Yeah.
She has accused Harry and Meghan of disrespecting her, along with some other people on that board, not to mention the African Parks charity scandal, where they have been very protective of their independent research into some of the accusations involving rape and torture. These are some pretty intense scandals that surround these charities that he's involved in, and he tends to take a back seat versus facing them head on, or insisting that they are more forthcoming when it comes to this information.
Yeah, because the scandal around that was really quite damaging. And I mean, we were talking earlier to Chloe Dobbs, who was in, and she was saying, oh, but you know, they're probably a bit more popular in America than they are here. But I said to her, well, not according to Kinsey Schofield, because she tells me that Hollywood honeymoon is well over.
It is. You are seeing a lot of people keep their distance because these two are considered toxic for the brand. You know, there's this thing called a Q score, and I know you're familiar with this. And it basically is Hollywood, their way of determining how popular you are. But it also involves, like, infamy versus fame. You might have a well-known name, Meghan Markle, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it makes people happy to hear it. It might make people cringe or just...
Well, we used to say all publicity is good publicity, but it really isn't.
Not today.
And not now. And because of all the TV talk shows and things, you know, she's never on any of them, is she, really? And I mean, you would think that she would want to be.
Well, I can tell you this. They have very strict rules when it comes to Meghan appearing on those shows. If you go back and watch the Drew Barrymore show that she appeared on around the time that she launched her Netflix series, watch it understanding that, according to reports from people like Radar, they had to submit each and every question to Meghan's camp prior to Meghan sitting down with her. It makes you so uncomfortable to try to watch this recreation, basically. Meghan acting like she's seeing this picture of Princess Diana for the first time that Drew Barrymore gives to her. Not only do I think that some of these TV shows don't want to bother. Of course, it's going to get them hits and attention, but it does require a lot of control from Meghan's camp.
Right. And which brings us back, I suppose, to that meeting in London, which is still, and we talked about it on Plank of the Week, which is coming out on Friday, is still quite mysterious, but probably, in your view, something that was orchestrated purely and simply by the Montecito Massive.
Look, I think that this is another example of Harry and Meghan trying to pull from the Princess Diana playbook. We're going to have these peace talks.
She was a lot better at it, though.
Oh, she was, We're going to have these peace talks, and then it's going to conveniently leak in the media that we've had these peace talks. I think that they're hoping for the boost in positive press. Harry's going to be brought back into the fold. The king can't wait to... The king misses Harry. But I also wonder how much of it is them trying to force their hand. If we know that there are peace talks going on, does it make the royal family look like villains if they reject the idea of Harry and Meghan coming back? But also, I look at it and I see the great press that Catherine and William have had over the last few weeks, and I wonder if someone in Montecito was just green with envy and said, "I'm gonna steal some headlines, at a drop of a hat."
Yeah, I think that may well be the way it kind of plays out. But listen, great to see you, Kinsey. Next time I see you, probably you'll be on the other side of the Atlantic. Lovely to see you in Britain. Thank you very much for coming. Kinsey Schofield, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back with Peter Hitchens and Matt Vickers in the next hour, coming up after the news. This is Morning Glory. Keep the calls coming in, 0344 499 1000. See you after the news. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week, the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humphrey Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar. Hello, and unfortunately, it catches on his Johnson.
If he's Plank of the Week, he's got a sizable plank.
That's a whole different show.
Plank of the Week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so funny that people...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 4 minutes past 9. The sun is up, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of cloud in the sky, but it's quite cool. It's quite nice. It should be quite a nice weekend. I can't believe we've reached Thursday. It is the 17th of July, of course. Another bombshell front page this morning on the Sun, in which it says Afghans' £1 billion blunder compo. Not only, as we told you yesterday, have we discovered that there was an injunction, a super injunction no less, placed on by the government on the news that we had somehow managed to blunder our way into an £8 billion loss because the Royal Marine inadvertently sent an email out to people he shouldn't have sent an email out, which contained the names of 18,500 people who may have been what the Afghan Taliban would have called collaborators with the British while the war was going on. Because of the blunder, the government panicked and decided, oh my goodness me, we better import all of those people into Britain, regardless of whether they actually were working with the British forces out there. We haven't got time to check. We'll just bring them all here and brought them all under cover of darkness, flew them in unmarked jets, brought them into military airports, sometimes into Stansted Airport as well, and now have housed them in a mixture of different types of accommodation. Some MOD encampments, some houses in residential areas, some flats in the middle of towns. You know, it's an extraordinary scandal, and it's an incredible amount of money that has been set aside. We now learn that the people who have come here have met some lawyers. Of course they have. Human rights lawyers, no less, who think they can get some compensation for them as much as £250,000 each, which is going to come to about £1 billion, maybe two. Who can say? But talk about ungrateful, absolutely unbelievable. People are absolutely beside themselves with fury this morning about the fact that this government seems to just want to give everything away that it can to people who may or may not be in any way deserving of it. Peter Hitchens is here, columnist at the Mail on Sunday. We'll talk to him about this and many other things. Matt Vickers as well, Shadow Home Office Minister. Have a listen to what some of you have been saying this morning so far.
Good morning, Mike B from the Midlands. Just a quick point. Winter fuel allowance. Disability cuts for children. It seems both governments have cared more about other people and their lives and the lives of the British people and the people that pay taxes. They are a disgrace, treacherous, and need to be kicked out. Have a brilliant day.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, be there talking about the ridiculousness of what has been going on over the past year since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. Yesterday, still standing up in the House of Commons, banging on about how great things are, how well things are going, how they're creating jobs everywhere, which they're not. Unemployment has gone up, so it's 4.7% in the last 3 months to May, and UK average regular earnings growth has gone down. 178,000 fewer payroll jobs, in fact, for the 5th month in a row. Absolutely unbelievable stuff. We've got more to do, plenty of time to do it in. This is the final hour of the show. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Morning, Mike, says Paul. In Durham here. If there was a better example of politicians being corrupt and covering for themselves, it was Prime Minister's questions yesterday. Both Labour and Conservatives are at fault, but it was a case of you don't mention it and we won't. Any other time, it would have been Kemi's first question. They're despicable, Mike. It's time to get them out and never let them in again. Top show, as usual. And Brad in Cambridge says, a few short decades ago, everyone, including the self-righteous lefties, were consumed with ensuring women's rights. Now, with misogynistic immigrants and trans rights zealots, we're just throwing them under the bus, says Brad in Cambridge. Fascinating, absolutely incredible stuff. Let's talk now, though, to Matt Vickers, MP, Shadow Home Office Minister down in Westminster for us. Matt, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
This has not been a great week for politics, has it? I'm hearing from many, many listeners and viewers this week that they've lost all faith in politicians. You know, the idea that Grant Shapps thought it was a great idea, along with the members of the last government, to basically try and deny the truth to ordinary people in this country and to newspapers and news organisations, trying to basically hide something because it was a massive embarrassment.
Well, I mean, it was a disaster.
utter disaster. I mean, I only know what you know, I only know what I've read, but actually, when you see the fact that we leaked, there was a list leaked by officials onto the internet of people who'd helped the British forces, making them a target for terrorists. Utter disaster. Disaster for those people, but disaster for the British taxpayer who's having to pick up the tab.
Yeah.
Complete mess.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the reality is there is a case. There is a case around, you have to obviously put the two things in context. You've got these people who are facing a threat because of something that the government has done. At the same time, as they're very different to the individuals who are coming here illegally. Do we owe them? We do owe them if they've put their lives on the line to help our forces abroad. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that a lot of people are also being very critical of this morning is Prime Minister's questions yesterday. Keir Starmer gets up, makes a brief statement about the whole mess that you've just described, and then sort of draws a line under it. Kemi Badenoch gets up. I was expecting her to get stuck into this whole story, despite the fact that, the Tories have got a lot to answer for here, because, the nation deserves to hear about it. And then instead of that, she goes off on the economy. And everyone's going, well, why are we not talking about the main story of the week and possibly the main story of the decade, which is this incredible blunder?
Yeah, well, I think there's probably quite a few things to go out of PMQ. Not that I don't know why they call it PMQs. It is just questions, isn't it? We never get an answer from the Prime Minister or anything. But I think in reality, there is a lot of things to go out. Should it have been an option? Potentially. But actually, the big news on the economy today, unemployment up 14%. 14% more people out of work in this country. That has huge consequences. And what's going to happen next with when he's coming to tax our pensions in order to pay for all these people who are unemployed, out of work, and unable to earn a living as the welfare bill goes through the roof?
Yeah, no, that's all very important stuff, but everybody knows about that, but they still need answers on this front. We don't want to sit around waiting for some, inquiry that Keir Starmer's going to tell us about in about a year's time. We need to hear from Grant Shapps. We need to hear from the players who were in the middle of it. We need to hear from Rishi Sunak, and if Kemi Badenoch's got any sense, she'll be on the phone to them saying, you guys have got to open up your doors and you've got to talk to people about what happened.
There is definitely questions to be asked. I mean, it is a disaster. It has huge costs, the rights and wrongs of it. I mean, the reality is also around the super injunction, there's the debate as to whether actually, if you'd put it in the press, would you have put these people at more risk? I think MPs should have known. I think they should have been able to ask the questions, scrutinise the processes as soon as it came about, so that we knew what was going on, that we knew that this couldn't have been happening again for the last couple of years before we found out about it. Yeah, it's an utter disaster.
Yeah, it really is. But, I mean, I'll let you off for now, and I'll let you talk about this unemployment problem. Increased from 4.6 to 4.7. Average regular earnings growth decreased now. 178,000 fewer payroll jobs, I believe, for the 5th month in a row. It's a disaster. Even Jaguar Land Rover this morning announcing they're going to get rid of 500 managerial jobs. Now, this is the company that Keir Starmer said he'd saved.
14% more people not earning a wage. 14% of people who can't aspire and live the life they want. And you know what? Not working is really bad for you. It's bad for your mental health. It's bad for your outlook on the world. It's devastating, actually. 14% more people without work. And the reason for that, I mean, every Labour government in history has left us with higher levels of unemployment than when they arrived in office. Yeah, every time Labour get in power, unemployment goes up. And the reality is, it's clear to see why. It doesn't just happen by accident. It happens because of the national insurance increase, taxing everybody who dares to create jobs for somebody, because the changes to small business rates relief for leisure, hospitality and retail, because that employment's rights bill that's coming down the line, the banter ban, all these ridiculous things that mean those people who go out, set up small businesses, who work hard and graft to create jobs, they're all getting absolutely battered. And the end result is they can't create any more jobs. Yeah. They've got to look at the bottom line and try and make this thing work. I mean, 69,000 jobs in the hospitality sector have been lost since they announced the jobs tax. That is devastating. That is community pubs across the country closing their doors. Unreal, the impact that it's having on individuals who are losing their jobs.
It really is. Absolutely shocking. Terrible. Matt, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Matt Vickers, MP, Shadow Home Office Minister there. He says, Kemi Badenoch needed to talk about the economy. I still think she should have been talking about Afghanistan. Let's talk to Peter Hitchens, columnist at the Mail on Sunday. Peter, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I don't know if you agree with me, but I think this business of a super injunction against the press and against the people of this country, taken out by Grant Shapps when he was Defence Secretary, is quite the most shameful thing I think I've seen a politician do for quite some time.
It is astounding, and it's astounding in so many different ways, leading off in so many different directions, but it shows so very strongly the habit of government in this country to use all its power and a lot of our money to conceal from us what it is doing. The idea that it was trying to conceal it from the Taliban, well, okay, you can believe that if you want. It seems bizarre to me to imagine that the Taliban weren't aware of all the people who've been working for us. It's not as if they could have done so in secret in Afghanistan. But leaving that aside, like so many government secrets performances, this is about keeping the truth about the way the government behaves from the electorate rather than keeping it from foreign powers. And we should be shocked by it and worried by it, but also we should take a lesson from it that, as quite rightly noted, the two major parties colluded in Parliament yesterday to try and play it down. I
thought that was even more disgraceful in a way.
Well, it is, but it just shows you they were both involved. The Grant Shapps may have initiated the whole business, but you don't see the incoming Labour government saying this is absolutely shocking, we can't carry on with this, and going public on it. It was only because the Daily Mail, my newspaper, carried on fighting in the courts. This thing ever came into the open. What else, I have to point out to you and your listeners, what else is going on now of the same kind of which we also know nothing?
Right.
This is a warning to you of just how many shameful things the government is doing, which carry on in secret, unreported, because the law prevents them from being reported. And remember, as you fill in your self-assessment returns this summer or autumn, doubtless with extra enthusiasm, remember who's paying for all this.
I know. Well, that's the extraordinary thing. I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg was on yesterday saying that it's quite staggering that the government of the day could have invented this super injunction to stop us from knowing not just about what the actual action was, but the cost was, without running any of it through Parliament. You know, billions and billions of pounds being committed, which we haven't known about all through the summer, being told by Keir Starmer there's a £22 billion black hole, without anybody ever mentioning the £8 billion that we're having to pay for this nonsense.
Well, be warned by it is all I can say. One could call for all kinds of inquiries and tribunals and everything else, and the country is so full of tribunals now they're falling off the edge of the island. But I don't necessarily think that's going to produce the answer. Just be warned by it. Remember how it is that we're governed, and remember that it's necessary to have an element of mistrust towards government in society, and therefore necessary to have strong independent media to call it into question. And people should be, I know that people are inclined to despise people from the media and from newspapers particularly, and to treat them as if they were somehow beneath their dignity to even take seriously. But what we do in the media is absolutely vital to maintaining the level of freedom that we have. And you should be very wary of anything which weakens those media, and you should be wary of being drawn into attacks on the media, which I'm afraid politicians and others are increasingly inclined to make. We are very, very important, however much you may dislike us. We're very, very important in actually keeping the gap open, which allows us to have some freedom and some transparency in our government.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, we're not required to be particularly popular as journalists, but we've got.
No, but I think there's a great fashion at the moment to be contemptuous. Of journalists, and I find it very tiresome. People have no idea what it would be like if there were no independent media, and this is an absolute demonstration of how it's vital. Who else would have had the resources or the money to pursue this case to the point where they actually forced the government to cough up the truth? And the answer is nobody. So do not forget that the next time you say, oh, the Daily Mail, and all of us, you hear people all the time saying how awful we all are. You may not like us, but if we were not there, you would absolutely miss us. And I think that just remember that when you look at this case. The other thing about this case is a fascinating exchange between the Father of the House, Sir Edward Lee, in Parliament on Tuesday with the Defence Secretary John Healey, in which Edward Lee came close, as few MPs ever do, to the truth. The reason why we get into these troubles in the first place is this crazy policy of liberal imperialism, of tramping around the world. Well, I say tramping, actually riding around the world in Uncle Sam's pocket. trying to create democratic societies in places where they're not going to exist, and intervening in other people's affairs, as if we were Star Trek, as we were Captain Kirk, going boldly forth to reform the world in the name of liberalism. Well, this is where it all starts, and the maddest of these enterprises was the one in Afghanistan, where nobody quite knew what we were doing there. You'll remember John Reed, who was then the secretary, I call Comrade Dr. Lord Reed, as he has so many titles, but including his Communist Party membership for the past. But he actually went into Parliament and said that the British troops would go to Afghanistan, but no shots would be fired, which of course they were. But what were they doing there? Nobody ever knew. The one purpose they seem to have settled on was to try and introduce the ideas of Hillary Clinton and Lady Cherie Blair into Afghanistan and try and turn it into Islington with the morals and customs of that. It didn't work any more than it would work if the Taliban turned up in Essex and started enforcing a burqa law on the women of that county. People don't like being told by foreign interveners, especially armed ones, how they should live their lives. And the Afghans are no exception. In fact, they're a very strong culture which objects very much to foreign interference. And always has. You may not like what they do, but it is their country, and the only way you're going to do the sort of thing we set out to do there is to actually be an imperialist country again. Now, liberals are always telling us they're against the empire and what a terrible thing it was, and yet all the things they do in Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya are basically imperialist. They're going around to other parts of the world telling people how they should behave and ordering them about by the use of military force. Well, how can that be right? And every time it goes wrong, and every
which
time
it always does.
Yeah, it goes wrong, and one of the first things that happens, and the consequence of it, and this is part of this Afghan scandal, well, is that the people of the region who've been bombed and shot at and had their societies destroyed start thinking, well, might it be a good idea to go and live somewhere else if this is what's going to happen to us here? And they begin moving. And we have begun, by these episodes of supposed utopianism, we have begun the biggest movement of population, I think, in human history, from Afghanistan, from Syria, from Iraq, from Libya, and not just from Libya, because when we got rid of Colonel Gaddafi in Libya, we opened the Mediterranean into a highway from the whole of Africa into Europe. We have transformed the world, and particularly Europe, by these adventures, and we continue to do so. And nobody takes responsibility for it or learns anything from it either. And then you get this extraordinary paradox that this helps in the creation of an increasingly multicultural Britain, in which we're taught to be ashamed of and embarrassed of our own values. And you have this extraordinary episode of the schoolgirl.
Yes, I want to come on to that, because you've written about that today.
Who goes along to celebrate her culture by wearing a Union Jack dress. And I know the school has now apologised and said it's terribly sorry they shouldn't have done it, but they wouldn't let her do what she'd gone there to do. Right. It's a schoolgirl, right. and she was treated. Now, the point made in this in my article in the Daily Mail today is, how is it that we send our troops abroad beneath the Union Jack to fight and die for this country? They do die, or they're horribly wounded beneath that flag, when that flag itself is disrespected in our own schools. How can that possibly be even acceptable or coherent? What sort of country is it that is ashamed of its flag at home but still uses it abroad? Yeah. I don't get it. Or rather, I do get it, and I understand that in fact it's part of a vast and profound cultural revolution still going on.
Yeah. And what was worse,
into somewhere else.
And what was worse, and I saw an interview with the girl in question, and she said basically that they told her at school that it was Cultural Day, and the British nationality, or being British, is just a nationality. It's not a culture. Those were their words.
Well, it's an extraordinary thing to say. I mean, it's obviously Britain has a very strong culture and has had for centuries.
Yeah.
And you simply can't escape that. And to deny that is an absurdity.
Yeah, absolutely incredible stuff. It's a great piece, by the way. It's on page 14 of the Daily Mail today. Peter, great to talk to you, as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Peter Hitchens there, columnist at the Mail on Sunday and the Daily Mail, got a piece today about that ridiculous situation, which makes an appearance, by the way, on Plank of the Week. A young girl, a 12-year-old girl, who was told that she couldn't enter her own school because she was wearing a Union Jack dress on a day which was supposed to be a day to celebrate different cultures. And apparently the British culture, according to her school, doesn't exist. Somewhere near Rugby. Absolutely incredible. 0344 499 1000. Let's get a voice note from Carl.
Hi, Mike. Carl in Bury. You know what's coming now, don't you, pal? With this Afghan debacle. When the next budget comes, and I think it's October, and Rachel Reeves ranks up the tax on everybody. She's got a ready-made excuse now. Oh, it's because we had to pay this £8 billion back for these Afghans. So, where really they were going to put it up anyway because it was all factored in. That is now their ready-made excuse.
Unbelievable stuff. Well, I'm not going to let them get away with it. I don't know about you. Have this from John. Hi, Mike. I too have a hefty tax bill to pay as I'm self-employed. I don't want my money to pay for all this nonsense compensation, free housing, benefits, etc. to people that haven't paid into the system. If doctors and nurses can strike, I say all of us self-employed people to go on a tax strike. How long would these people in power take to stop the boats and deport every illegal person, etc.? Not very long, I would imagine. And Tony in Barron-Furness, he just had an ex-Tory MP on saying he lost his seat because of reform. If the Tories were voted back in, this super injunction would still be in place. As an ex-Tory voter, now reformed since 2022, the Tories are finished. Morning, Mike. This is Sarah in Birmingham. I've honestly lost the will to live. I'm left wondering if this £7 to £8 billion Afghan scandal represents part of the £22 billion black hole that Labour found and keep reminding us about, but are reluctant to justify the figures for. What else aren't we being told about that makes up the remaining 14 or 15 billion? Now we know why pensioners, farmers, waspy women, genuine taxpayers and every British person have been hung out to dry. The enemy from within springs to mind, Mike. Sarah, it's a great point. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get... no, I think we've done the voice now. Coming back, we're going to talk to Catherine Porter, independent energy consultant, because Reform are saying they will scrap wind farm subsidies if they get into power. We might have a little word about Ed Miliband as well.
How realistic do you think a ceasefire is this week?
There's a very good chance that we'll have a settlement, an agreement of some kind.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.
What are you looking for here?
an end, a real end. Well, all of a sudden he's a big shot because he has the U.S. on his side. I am very disappointed with President Putin. He'll talk so beautifully and then he'll bomb people at night.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:28. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. I've got a piece on page 10 of The Sun today where I say that thanks to the complete and utter shambles of the last government, the Tory government, getting us stuck in to this Afghan problem that's now cost us something like £8 billion and counting, possibly with compensation, another billion on top, maybe 9, maybe 10 billion because of some idiot who managed to press the wrong button and send an email to the wrong people, so that we've now basically imported 18,500 Afghans and counting. Basically, the piece says maybe it's time we call an election because the Labour government are also complicit in it as well. Some people on Twitter are arguing with me saying, why would you want to call an election? This is all the fault of the Tories. Well, you can say that, but the point is that the reason I would say that the Labour Party have been complicit is that they were elected knowing about this, right? John Healey, the Defence Secretary now, knew about it. He told Keir Starmer about it on July the 4th, as soon as he became Prime Minister, and they then went all through the summer telling us all about a £22 billion black hole, which they didn't mention the 7 billion or the 8 billion of cost of the Afghan resettlement scheme. They didn't talk about it. They didn't lift the injunction. They continued to keep it silent. They continued to keep it from the British public when they could have done something else. They could have lifted the injunction and told us all about it and said, look, we've inherited this terrible problem. They didn't do that. Instead, they presented a budget which was not mentioning this £7-8 billion deficit that we were going to suffer, and so they basically lied about it all the way through, and only until this week when Daily Mail, thankfully, having fought long and hard as a free press to actually get the injunction lifted, finally got it lifted, and then they finally told us because they were forced into it. It is not something that Labour have solved. It is something that they've been complicit in, and that's why I think it's time to have an election. Let the people decide. And if Labour are so confident that the people think they've done a good thing, then surely they should be very happy to let the people give them a vote of confidence and an extra year in government. Why not? If things are going as well as Keir Starmer says, quite often you call an election and you say, now we're going to get another year. Instead of 2029, we can go all the way to 2030. But he won't do that, will he? Because things are not going well. Let's talk to Catherine Porter, independent energy consultant, of course, because front page of the Telegraph today has got a story with Reform saying that they'll axe wind farm subsidies if they get in, and green firms who are all suffering at the moment because they get these subsidies and they would be terrified if Reform get in. Let's see what Catherine makes of it all. Catherine, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
It's been a weird old week, hasn't it, for the Greens, because we've had Ed Miliband up in Parliament, unable to answer any questions, telling people that he believes in Britain. That's basically what net zero is all about. And then we've had the craziness of the electric car subsidy and the gullies, the craziness of the gullies. I mean, that kept us going for about 2 days on this show.
Well, and also you've had the amendments to the subsidies themselves, that the new subsidies are going to be significantly more expensive to energy consumers than the previous ones. Right. The talk around the industry has been that developers need more money. And so one of the things the government has agreed to do is lengthen the subsidy term from 15 to 20 years, probably so that the headline subsidy amount looks lower. But it's almost certainly going to be significantly higher than the last one. Right. And the last one was already more expensive for offshore wind than the wholesale price of electricity based on gas. So Ed Miliband's numbers are just falling apart. Yes. I think it's worth noting, though, that what Reform are saying is that they're going to look at cancelling future subsidies rather than the existing ones. There's a lot of hysteria on social media at the moment, particularly LinkedIn, where people say, oh, this will destroy investor confidence. I don't think that's true. I think they've made a very specific announcement that a very specific type of contract, which has not yet been signed, would be reviewed by a future reform government and then potentially cancelled if they are deemed to be poor value for money for the public. If investors go ahead and then sign those contracts anyway, well, that's basically on them.
Yeah, right. But this is the trouble. I think a lot of people feel kind of put upon because, you know, for everything that we subsidise as it is, you know, particularly, you know, this week when we learned that we've got to find another sort of $8 billion to take care of a lot of Afghans who've come to live here, you know, the subsidies that are paid to these green companies don't benefit really the rest of society at all. It just seems to make a lot of the people that are involved with these green companies wealthy, you know, and the ordinary taxpayer gets the bill.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can really look at certain individuals and ask how is it they've managed to enrich themselves quite so much with an energy source that's based entirely on subsidies. And we started subsidising wind in 1990. I mean, I can't repeat that often enough. It's been 35 years. And now the government wants to sign contracts that will add another 20 years onto that. At what point are we going to see these promises around renewables being cheap and not needing subsidies anymore? When will we see those promises being delivered?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no sign of it, is there? I mean, all we hear about from people like Jürgen up at GB Energy or Ed Miliband is, you know, we'll be saving you money, but it doesn't really have a time frame on it. And I was learning, I think the other day I read a story that GB Energy is going to be subsidising libraries and various other public buildings so that they can get cheap energy. Well, that's great. Well, what about the rest of us?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this is actually quite funny because they were assuming that they were going to be able to buy cheap solar panels from China. Right. And then obviously you had that late amendment into the act that created GB Energy, which prevents them from buying anything that is associated with forced labour. And so now they're going to have to source their solar panels elsewhere and they'll be more expensive. But I think, you know, we hear people like Chris Stark and Ed Miliband saying that renewables are cheap, saying that they'll bring down electricity prices. Ed Davey was repeating this nonsense as well a few days ago. It's just not true. Renewables are more expensive today than gas generation, and they will continue to be more expensive. The subsidies are increasing. And so it's going in exactly the wrong direction. And even the Climate Change Committee has said that there's not really an expectation of any savings from renewables until the 7th budget period that starts in 2038. Wow. So not this to £300 in 2030 business, reduction on our bills. Even the Climate Change Committee doesn't think that's going to materialise. And their report is full of extremely unrealistic assumptions about pricing, which are really never going to be materialised. So it's only going to be expensive. It will always be expensive.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely incredible. Great to talk to you, Catherine Porter. Thank you very much indeed. Independent energy consultant there. This from Louise on Afghan leak.
Hi Mike, Louise from Nottingham. I'm so saddened by all this. If nothing, I've come to the realisation that there has been a complete and utter dereliction of duty by consecutive governments for generations. Why is it that we have the money to help people who have broken into our country, who disrespect our women, who hate our culture and bleed us dry, and we've never had it for our own homeless, especially our veterans? Obviously, we are less deserving and worthy of their help. Why do they hate us so much?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Why do they? Absolutely right. One from Mark who says, what on earth is going on in Great Britain? I'm here in Vienna and shocked with what the Tories and Labour are getting away with. Each MP should pay back the billions from their own pocket. Yeah, I mean, it has to be said. Absolutely outrageous. It's 9:36. Coming up, Brigadier Ed Butler's going to join us, former SAS commanding officer in Afghanistan, an ambassador for We Serve. Also, Hannah Saunders is here as well, former RAF entrepreneur, former RAF person, entrepreneur, and Dragon's Den founder. That'll be a treat for you. We'll see them in a minute.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 20 minutes to 10. We're here until, of course, 10 o'clock. We've been here since 6 this morning, and we've just been getting inundated with your views on this ridiculousness now of this Afghan story, because not only is it going to cost us 8 billion quid for the error of one Royal Marine who hit the wrong button, but also it is now going to cost us in excess of perhaps another 1 or 2 billion because now the people that we rescued want to sue us because they found some human rights lawyers. Brilliant, isn't it? Let's talk now to Brigadier Ed Butler, former SAS commanding officer and, of course, chair of We Serve. Ed, very good to see you.
Morning, Mike.
And you brought somebody with you who is Hannah Saunders, entrepreneur, Dragon's Den person. Do you get a special name for it? Dragon's Den
wear a badge.
Something, you know, like contestant, is it?
I feel like I should get some kind of medal
absolutely
for going in there.
Yeah, fantastic. So anyway, listen, before we talk about We Serve, which is launching today, officially, finally, which is brilliant, Brigadier, I've got to talk to you about this Afghan story, because obviously you were serving there, you were in charge of the SAS there. The numbers game is what kind of puzzles me, because obviously we've now been told 18,500 people have come in because they were on this list, but clearly all of them probably weren't legitimately possibly working for British forces, were they?
No, that's what it seems to be. That, you know, the list was leaked, which shouldn't have happened, and that's an issue on its own.
Yeah.
But the fact seems to be that 20,000 Afghans have come into this country when actually there's only probably 4,000 or so who are actually eligible, who served alongside British forces in Afghanistan, did an outstanding job for us, enabled all our activities. They were interpreters, as you know. And so the leak happened. Yep, that was a mistake, shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
I think the injunction in the first place seems to be correct. Something's happened. We want to lock it down.
That seems fair enough. Yeah,
find out what the scope and
the Ben Wallace one seems to be fine. It's the Grant Shapps one that I'm troubled by.
Yeah, so from then onwards, I'm not quite sure why this super injunction had to be in place.
Yeah.
And then we've had this rather chaotic situation of denial, cover-up.
Yeah.
It's not me, not sure what's going on.
Right.
And I think, you know, it's so important, you know, that we look after those people who serve and serve alongside us. And the Afghans fought and died alongside British servicemen, so we owe them a duty to bring them back. We brought back quite a lot under the Arab scheme, as it was known, the relocation resettlement scheme, but a lot of them have had real difficulty. And if people don't trust you to look after them, then that is really damaging for our nation and for our security. And we had the debacle of the Afghan withdrawal from Kabul in 2021, which sent shockwaves amongst our allies who are saying, are we going to trust you again in the future? And that is so important now, when we've got a common enemy in Russia. We're trying to build a coalition. Will people trust us to stick with them, not just during a fight, but after that? And that links on again, and you and I have talked about this, of the Northern Ireland Legacy Act and the Afghan inquiry. The governments, successive governments, have not backed our servicemen and women, and that is outrageous.
And that is also something that people are telling me at the moment this week, that, you know, all very well and good to say we must look after the people that helped us in Afghanistan, but what about the people that were sent out there from here? You know, because we're not really helping them very much. Some of the servicemen who have come back, and part of We Served is all about that. Looking after your own troops and looking after your own, you know, military people who have served their country willingly, you know, fought and sometimes been injured, sometimes been hurt, sometimes has lost their lives and limbs and all the rest of it. But they're saying, well, hang on a minute, you know, these people coming in from Afghanistan are getting better treated. They're being given houses, they're being given, you know, free stuff, you know, everything that they can be handed to. Maybe that's what should happen, but it doesn't happen if you just come out of the army, does it?
No, I mean, and that's the point of what we're setting up with We Serve. We know we're building a community, and we want to look after our veterans from the day they leave until the day that they die, and look after them through all the things which they want to do. And as you know, the primary aim of We Serve is to give people a job. And that's what you want. You leave the military, you want to get a job. You want to have a successful second career. If you have a job, you're less likely to, you know, get into difficulties, financial, mental health and everything else. But more importantly, we want to build a community where people can come together and then we want to be able to provide our veterans with rewards, discounts, whether it's in health, whether it's in insurance, housing, access to GP services and the like. But the community piece is really important. On the other side of this is that to provide our companies and corporates access to verified and accredited veterans who've got all huge amount of skills and experiences, management skills, professional skills, but they have access to that. So we're building this marketplace, Mike, which is really exciting. We launched this afternoon, and we've done lots of work. It's been going on for the last 2 years, and today we go live. And the data which we've gathered from over 200,000 people in the veteran community saying this is what we need and want. We want to have a trusted community where we can come in, meet up with our former colleagues and get these benefits, whether it's a job, discounts and everything else.
Okay, brilliant. Hannah, you've joined in as well. Sorry to not speak to you yet. So how long have you been involved with We Serve then?
So I've been involved with We Served about 5 months now.
Okay.
And I'm their head of marketing, and I am really excited to be part of this, because to your point, we don't, as a cultural thing, we don't particularly look after our veterans. Right. I've been out in the States, and I've worked out there, and the recognition you get for serving your country, because at the end of the day, the people that sign up, you're signing up to say, I would be willing to die for my country, and we can talk about combat roles and the various different roles that people perform in the military. But that's what we all sign up to do, and that should come with an element of recognition and reward. And I'll never forget when I got in a taxi when I was in my RAF uniform with an American lady, and she wouldn't let me pay for the taxi. Right. And I sort of, being British, thought like, oh, no, of course I'll pay my way. No, I'm thank you for your service. Of course I'll pay for you. And this is a step towards really recognising our veterans. Yeah. And we're not just mad, bad, sad. We as to Ed's point, we come out with lots of different skills. I definitely wouldn't have been able to go into Dragon's Den pre-RAF. Right. It taught me so much resilience, determination, confidence, public speaking. And so veterans are a real asset, and that's what we're really trying to say. And we're supporting the whole veteran community. You get charities in silos, and they're great, and they're very much needed. They have their place. We are the digital home for every veteran. And that's what I'm really excited about today, and why I really wanted to get involved with this.
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic project. I mean, I've been talking to Hugh Andre about it for probably a couple of years, as you say, Ed. So, I mean, in terms of what actually happens today, then it's a launch obviously online. What happens if somebody isn't in there? If somebody isn't in the space yet, how do they get there?
Well, what we want to do, it will go live this afternoon. They sign up, they register, they just need some proof that they were in the military, an ID card, their discharge papers or whatever. They log that in, they put their details in, and then they'll get access to a jobs board. And we've got 900 jobs from Oracle already pledged. Wow. We've got 2,000 from, I can't mention the name, from a major defence contractor. Okay. We've got the Property Institute with over 1,000 jobs they're going to put on there, and that's to look after all the properties which they manage in London and elsewhere. So that's great for an ex-serviceman.
You're doing better than the government.
This is about people who've worked in logistics. Because the old quartermaster. These guys and ladies will be able to go into there and say, look, I've done all this before. I can do it for you. And we've got an exciting development in the Middle East who want to offer opportunities to our servicemen and women, former servicemen and women. So that's on the employment side, which is really exciting. And what I want to my ask for today is that companies look at We Serve and say, right, we've got this huge community of veterans, accredited veterans. Yes. I want to have access to that, not just because I want to give them a job, because I know the skills they have, but also if I've got a large bunch of subscribers, then I can offer them discounts, whether it's on holidays, on health, on insurance, financial service and the like. So it's a great marketplace. On one side, the veterans, on the other side, the corporates and companies who can offer our very deserving veterans a a better opportunity than they're getting now.
Okay. And Hannah, what do the veterans that you've spoken to tell you about what they want out of all of this? You know,
Yes.
what are they not getting?
So I think when we surveyed the veterans community, 76% felt that they didn't have that community, and it's a very unique thing. It's a very nuanced thing. When you join the military, you're part of this family. You're part of something. It's so much broader than just your day job. It becomes part of your identity, and then we say we're going to take that massive part of your identity and just drop you into Civvy Street, and then you don't have this community around you. To some people, it really is family. So 76% said they really want a community. From what we're doing, so we've set up our own essentially social community ourselves. 82% said that they felt the benefits available to veterans weren't very good, because often they're then opened out to a very wide range of people, and I have great respect for people that work in the NHS, but this is a very different group of people. So let's get really, really good discounts for an exclusive group of people who really earned it, and that's why we're so hot on the verification process. You do need to verify you're a veteran. We're pretty sure nobody can get in that isn't, but that means we can do really, really good discounts, not 5% here and 10% there. And it's free to join, but we've got an absolutely incredible health and wellbeing subscription, which I won't go into all the detail because there's so much, but it's $4.99 a month and it's 24/7 GP. It's unlimited mental health therapy, it's online physiotherapy, because we really do want to help our veterans with the things they actually need.
Yeah, absolutely. And housing, of course, is a big thing as well, isn't it? There's homeless veterans. I mean, have you been able to get them kind of enrolled in some way, shape or form, or has that been more difficult?
No, I mean, we've got an ongoing initiative running actually on the Isle of Wight. We're saying actually we want to provide housing for them, but we also want to get them on to come and help us build these houses, whether it's on the construction side, the electricians, the plumbers and everything else. So it's a win-win for both of them, both parts of that, and we want to roll that out. But, you know, if you're a mortgage provider and you can have access to, you know, hundreds of thousands of veterans, there's 5.1 million veterans and their families. So you as a veteran can sign up, and 4 members of your family. So that's benefits goes to everyone. There's over 5 million of those individuals in the country. So that's a huge marketplace to access. So if I'm a mortgage provider, for example, or an insurance provider, if I can get access to 10-20% of it, then I do really well. But the point I want to stress as well, you know, we're all veterans in We Serve. This is a commercial proposition, but every single person who's part of his organisation has had a successful second career. We've learnt the hard way, we've had our ups and downs in it, but we've had successful careers. And that's what we think is so important. We want to feed that back, and so hence this is for veterans by veterans. But we want to make it much, much better for people who've served their country to have a fruitful, prosperous and healthy second career.
Tremendous. It's such a great thing. I'm so happy that it's finally launching. It's really good, really good. So, great to see you. Good luck with it. Are you having a few glasses of champagne later, perhaps?
Probably,
Ed Butler, Hannah Saunders, thank you very much indeed. WeServe.com, right?
That's right.
Go and
sign up today.
Sign up today. And if you've got any jobs going, you know, get in touch as well. It's 9:51.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 5 minutes to 10. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here very, very shortly. Neil in Surrey says, morning, Mike, great show. You are a prophet. You've been saying all year that there is something coming down the pipe that will bring this appalling government to an end. And finally, it's happened. Now, we must have the King dissolve the Parliament and force another election. But he will not. We are done. I'm off to the USA. Oh, dear. Peter is in Croydon. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Mike. How are you?
Very well, sir. What can I do for you?
Good. Yes, I've been looking at the bigger picture here, and it's not beyond the realms of the possibility that this was deliberate. A lot of people are thinking that now. And looking at the bigger picture, and I don't believe the operation, the covert operation, was because they were embarrassed at the situation. I think because we know Starmer wants to divide and rule.
Yeah.
And I think it's all part of it. He just going by the population of the indigenous people. He wants to lower that. He wants to create division, doesn't he? I think.
Well, I mean, he's certainly managing to do it. Whether he wants to do it or not, he's certainly causing division. And all he does is bang on about the people who cause division. Well, he's one of them. You know, he's also complicit, as is Rishi Sunak, in being a sort of a smuggling gang for immigrants. You know, the biggest smuggling gang so far that we've seen is the smuggling gang of the British government bringing Afghans into Britain by the tens of thousands, for heaven's sake.
Absolutely, Mike, and we know in Gaza the women are still having babies, and apparently the last count was 137 babies being born a day. So
not much of a genocide then, is it? No, exactly right. Exactly right, Peter. Thanks for your call. Just one quick one from Heather, who's in Girvan, up in Scotland. Heather, very good morning to you.
Hello. Why is consecutive governments like Labour and Conservatives upon this, blanket ban of blackout news and telling a load of lies and covering things up? Is absolutely diabolical, and
it is. It's absolutely diabolical, Heather. You're quite right. It's a very good word. We haven't had that word yet today. One from Catherine, who says, I always find your slot with Peter Hitchens unmissable, but today he excelled himself. Thank God for journalists like both of you. Our politicians from the two main parties have lost all credibility. Please keep calling for a general election now. The people of this country cannot take much more, says Catherine. Julie Hartley-Brewer's here. Very good morning.
I couldn't disagree with you more on the general election thing. It actually riles me every time you do it.
Do it?
Yeah, because we had a general election.
I'll keep doing it more then.
I know you will. Because we had a general election. They won fair and square. I mean, like, they're useless. So were the last lot. You have a general election when you do a general election.
Yeah, but my reasoning
the thing we're complaining about now is something that happened under the last government.
Yeah, but my reasoning is not because they're useless. It's because they didn't actually tell us the truth, because they knew about this black hole of
Well, so did the
7
last
or 8
lot.
billion.
But
Yes, I know, but what I mean is that the
You could
election...
argue they uncovered it. They are the ones
Well, yeah, but
exposed
they
it.
didn't really lift it. The point is that, you know, throughout the summer we were talking about monies that we didn't have,
I know.
money that we needed to save.
I just don't think the solution to everything is... Let's just have... In that case, genuinely, if we're going to have an election every time we find out the government's been lying to us, we'd have an election every other day.
Yeah, maybe that's the next... Maybe that's a good plan.
Let's just have referendums on
Yeah,
things.
just put people in charge for a month and go, see how you do. And if you do all right...
And then we wonder why there's no long-term planning in this
country. Give you
country.
another month.
What we need is a benign dictatorship.
Yes.
Come on, you and me.
It
Come
works
on.
well. It works well.
Come on,
no
you
arguing.
know it would work.
No, because we'd argue all the time, though, wouldn't we?
But we'd do a better job than this lot.
We would. And we wouldn't tell lies either.
Oh, no. I mean, absolutely.
That's the thing.
As soon as you get into power, you start covering things up.
That's the trouble.
What you do.
And that's what's rather